I woke up with the absolute worst headache ever, feeling like someone was carving up my brain. Stick with me here. I just went from a burned out office worker on Earth to suddenly waking up, grabbing fancy silk sheets. Opening my eyes, I found myself inside a massive, fancy bedroom. Carved ceilings, heavy velvet curtains, and an actual stone castle outside the window. A giant sword hung right on the wall. Knight armor stood by the door, and a shiny silver mirror showed a face totally not mine. A pale, handsome teen with black hair and blue eyes. Then, strange memories hit me like a flood. I am now doing Wilson, the second son of Viscount Wilson, who rules Blackstone City on the mighty Odin continent. This world features actual gods, priests tracking evil spirits, and powerful mages inspecting souls. And honestly, that is my absolute biggest problem. I am an otherworldly soul, basically a foreign demon here. If anyone finds out, it means the instant deletion of my entire soul. 0 second chances. My family situation is complicated. My father is brutally cold and practical. It is all about family status. My mom is extremely warm, but lacks any real voice. Big brother Edmund is the perfect, reliable heir, but keeps me totally distanced, since I am just the second son. Sweet little sister Annabelle actually likes me far more than our super serious big brother. But tomorrow brings the absolute worst part. I just turned 15, and there is a massive talent ceremony where I must touch a magic crystal ball. It accurately tests your true potential for magic or intense combat. For a second son like me, future career options are extremely limited. Manage some tiny land, join the church, enter the army, or if incredibly lucky, become a real mage. But here is the actual pure terror for me. Now pay attention. What if that crystal exposes my fake soul? It would literally be a permanent game over. I heavily considered faking sick to skip it, but that looks super suspicious and only makes things way worse. I must act completely normal, just a nervous teen facing his huge test. A kind maid knocked on my door, calling me down for morning prayers. I put on my best original doing Wilson voice, telling her I would be right down. I then stared into the mirror at this total stranger's face and muttered a very weak, desperate pep talk. I yanked the curtains open, staring at the castle under the morning sun. Whatever happens today, I simply cannot escape it. The worst case scenario is getting wiped out and sent back home. So, let's go. The grand family hall was beautifully prepared for the massive talent detection ceremony. A huge basketball-sized crystal ball sat right on a velvet table, middle stage. Every single time I looked at it, I swore the creepy thing was grinning at me. My father sat upon his high chair, freezing cold as always, staring me down. Big brother Edmund stood right beside him, looking supportive, yet visibly tense. My mom stayed in the corner, nervously twisting her handkerchief. Next to the crystal stood Orville Hawkeye, a strict mid-level mage from the Regional Magic Association, the exact man judging my ultimate fate. When my father finally called my name, my poor heart nearly shattered my ribs. My palms were completely drenched in heavy sweat. I kept mentally screaming to stay calm and act exactly like the normal, anxious teenager the original doing Wilson totally was. I bowed super stiffly and stepped up. The imposing mage told me to place my hand on the crystal and simply relax. My racing mind pictured endless disaster scenarios, blaring alarms, black lights, and the mage screaming about purifying my foreign soul. We both saw this coming, right? I pressed my sweaty hand onto the freezing surface. Instead of disaster, the ball utterly exploded with brilliant blue light. Pure, dazzling blue flooded the entire hall like a massive flashbang. Everyone collectively gasped. My dad's freezing cold expression actually cracked. Pure shock, wild joy, then immediate hilarious pain as he rapidly calculated how much this magical tuition would definitely cost. My brother tightly clenched his fist with genuine happiness, while mom covered her mouth. Happy tears falling fast. Even the professional mage completely lost his cool. He stared at the glowing ball, muttering how my elemental sensitivity was totally off the charts. My pure spiritual power rivaling registered mages. plus a massively high-level fire element, affinity. I stood completely stunned. Not only did the ball totally fail to expose my foreign soul, it definitively proved I possessed absolutely exceptional magical talent. This illegal soul traveler just scored a VIP pass. The mage passionately recommended attending the prestigious Imperial Magic Academy. My brain instantly lit up. This was absolutely perfect. The huge capital city would be absolutely crowded with incredible talents. My strange soul would remain totally undetected inside that massive ocean of humanity. Way safer than staying here, where my sharp dad or a wandering priest might notice something strangely off. Plus, I could learn real magic for self-defense. Putting on my absolute best eager teen expression, I practically begged my father, calling the academy my ultimate dream. He mentally wrestled with the massive cost, but finally nodded, firmly agreeing the family would arrange everything. The rest of the day, everything changed. Servants suddenly treated me with way more respect. Dinner was the absolute fanciest feast ever. My father's cold glances grew a few degrees warmer, while mom kept happily piling food onto my plate. Brother hyped our capital connections. Trust me, you and I are gonna love this academy. Stick with me here. I played the humble teen outside, but my soul was screaming with joy. That night, back in my room, zero sleep. Way too much adrenaline. Serious tension was still lingering underneath that hype. I tried meditating to just calm down, but also to build my foundation as a future top-tier magic student. Sinking deeper, my mind suddenly shattered an invisible barrier, dropping me straight into this incredibly strange, pitch-black void space. A tiny glow caught my eye, and I carefully reached toward it mentally. Boom! It clicked. Data flooded my brain instantly. I had just unlocked a farm space. 10 acres of spirit farmland with double time speed, plus 10 ranch pens running at triple speed for magical beasts, and a sweet workshop for grinding, processing, and keeping all my rare materials safe. Inside this crazy domain, my thoughts alone could literally control every single thing. Tilling the earth, planting seeds, feeding pets, cleaning, and basic crafting, all powered by my own spiritual energy. My brain totally short-circuited for a second, realizing this cheat space was actually real. Then pure hype exploded through my veins. This was my ultimate cheat code. Now pay close attention. Here, a farming simulator with time acceleration? Way better than magical talent. Still wide awake at dawn, I grabbed my guard, Raymond, claiming I urgently needed some test materials for magical research. He totally expected me to demand magic crystals or rare metals. Instead, I asked for wheat and radish seeds, baby chicks, and rabbits. His face was pure comedy, just utter, absolute confusion. But I dropped fancy terms like life element research and elemental flow, and he totally bought it. He saluted and dashed to the market. Alone again, I locked my door, instantly diving back into my secret farm space. It was exactly as perfect as I remember. 10 acres of perfectly flat land, 10 spotless animal pens, and a neat little stone workshop right on the edge. Time acceleration was totally real. Farmland crops grow at double speed, while those animal pens run 3 times faster than the normal outside world. I started telekinetically tilling the soil, but wow, it was exhausting. I barely managed 2 acres before my mental energy completely drained away. So much for plowing all 10 at once. I planted wheat and radishes, clumsily dropping tiny seeds into the furrows and burying them with soil, using my incredibly awkward telekinesis skills. Fumbling those seeds everywhere felt exactly like learning to use chopsticks for the very first time. Raymond finally brought the supplies. I snatched that bag and slammed the door. 3 yellow chicks and 2 little gray rabbits were my official test subjects. With just one thought, I pulled them inside. Chicks went straight into one pen, rabbits into another. Trembling and super scared at first, they just huddled together. Then began the waiting game. 10 minutes passed, absolutely nothing. 30 minutes, still nothing. You and I both probably thought this cheat needed a premium subscription. But after 1 real hour, boom, everything completely changed. Tiny green sprouts had finally broken through the soil in both fields. Those chicks were strutting around with brighter feathers and way more energy. The rabbits got super bold, sniffing for food. Acceleration confirmed. Just 1 hour outside literally equaled 2 whole hours on this magical farmland. This crazy growth speed was absolutely incredible. Crouching by my test plots, watching these seedlings slowly unfurl, I felt way more satisfied than playing any simulation game ever. This was actually real. Real resources, granting me real, absolute power. Suddenly, a memory from the original Dune hit me like lightning. The Wilson family's entire main business was raising war horses. They supplied powerful mounts for the Northern Border Army. These horses had insane endurance, but completely lacked burst speed. That was a fatal weakness against those blazing fast ORC wolf riders. My dad and brother struggled with this exact problem for years, totally unable to afford any better breeding stock. Staring at those growing rabbits, an absolutely wild idea caught fire in my head. What if I somehow got just one epic stallion, or some top-tier mares, and tossed them into this magical space? With triple speed acceleration, they would breed and grow incredibly fast. Could I actually upgrade our war horses with this cheat? Forget wheat and chickens, that was just boring, small-time stuff. Upgrading our core military asset, that would change literally everything for the Wilsons. My heart pounded so hard I heard it ringing. An epic, game-changing plan for ultimate horse breeding had officially taken root. I licked my dry lips, staring out toward Blackstone City, completely burning with epic excitement. These past days were a total roller coaster. First, that crystal ball nearly shattered my soul. Next thing, I'm labeled a rare magic genius. Before I even caught my breath, my dad decided to ship me off to the Imperial Magic Academy in the capital. Looking at that fancy academy letter in Dad's heavy money bag, so what do you and I make of this? An absolutely epic adventure awaits. Stick with me here. The coins clinked nicely, but training a mage is insanely expensive. Tuition, materials, experiments, housing, and food. This money would barely even cover the basics. Being a second son meant a tight budget. At least father assigned Raymond as my bodyguard. The poor guy had absolutely zero clue. He was protecting a broke magic student who secretly needed animal feed. Before heading out, I did my daily farm inspection. The space completely transformed in just days. The wheat field was packed with bright green shoots, already well past ankle height. Those radishes were even more impressive. Thick, lush leaves spreading everywhere. Way healthier than regular crops. My 3 chicks became plump little birds with shiny feathers, racing around their pen. And those 2 rabbits, fat gray furballs, munching grass. I tested out the workshop, grinding rabbit droppings into fertilizer and spreading it across a small section of my wheat. 10 minutes of staring later, and the effect? Basically zero. The workshop was just too basic. I definitely need real magical fertilizer recipes or an upgrade later. Then came the goodbyes at the castle gate. Mother cried, holding my hands, telling me to stay warm. I awkwardly promised I would return to light her candles with fireballs. She laughed, hugging me tight. My brother Edmund patted my shoulder, telling me to make the whole family proud. Then he secretly slipped me a heavy money bag, whispering that the capital was expensive, and I would absolutely need it. I seriously almost hugged his legs. Edmund was incredible, and that extra cash boosted my confidence so much. Last came Father's farewell speech. He stood tall as a tower, eyes like blades, declaring I was no longer just his son. Now pay attention, this is important. I was a Wilson representative. Magic meant heavy responsibility. I had to protect myself, protect my future companions, and seriously uphold our family honor. He warned me against the capital's temptations. The consequences of failure were unspoken, but crystal clear in his cold stare. I straightened my back, promising to study hard and never disgrace our family, throwing in a modified oath too. After a long stare, he gave one satisfied nod. Raymond and I climbed into our modest carriage, finally leaving Blackstone Castle. I touched Edmund's extra money bag, felt the secret farm humming in my mind, and thought about everything ahead. Tight finances, secret farming, serious magic training, and the absolutely crushing weight of family expectations. I just stopped overthinking, closed my eyes, and checked on my space chickens instead. The road to the capital was long, and I had crops to tend, so off I went, second son, future mage, and secret farmer, carrying limited gold, unlimited ambition, and a time-accelerating magical farm hidden deep inside my soul. Our modest carriage tagged behind the Wilson trade convoy, bouncing down terrible dirt roads straight toward the capital. The scenery shifted from barren, rocky lands to lush green farms and beautiful rolling wheat fields. It was beautiful, but the roads? Awful. Huge dust clouds when dry, and knee-deep mud when wet. I missed paved roads. During rest stops, I played the eager magic student, reading my handbook and muttering nonsense about elemental energy. Old John, the caravan leader, would joke about my research, and I just invented crazy theories about weed. Life force. Raymond stayed glued to my side, guarding me like hidden assassins. Might jump from the wheat at any given second. On day 5, we reached Maple Leaf Town, a super busy trading hub right on the capital route. I know what you're thinking. A horse plan? Oh, absolutely. My heart was racing. I told Raymond I wanted local maple candy for my classmates, convincing him to stay behind and guard our luggage. Once out of sight, I dropped the innocent act entirely, following my nose straight into the chaotic livestock market. Pure chaos. Cows, sheep, pigs, and chickens all crammed together. The smell? Absolutely brutal. I marched straight to the horse section. I definitely could not afford those fancy, expensive rides. Instead, I targeted affordable options. An old gray warhorse with a bad front leg, and 2 sturdy local brown mares. Nothing fancy, but totally healthy enough to breed. Using past life bargaining skills, I haggled the old horse down from 5 gold coins to 3, getting the mares dirt cheap. Then came the insanely nerve-wracking part, making 3 full-sized horses disappear into my farm space without a single person seeing. I sent the dealer for water. The second he turned, I focused my mind, pulling all 3 horses right into the space. They vanished completely. You and I just watched the perfect magical heist. Stick with me, we are diving right into the madness. I shoved gold at the confused dealer, mumbled my guys had the horses, and bolted. Raymond asked about the candy. I told him it was sold out. Smooth. Back inside the carriage, I hopped into my farm space to check the new arrivals. The 3 horses rested in a fresh pen. The old gray one was cautiously nibbling the tender grass, and honestly, something absolutely incredible was happening. His cloudy eyes were literally brightening up, and that badly injured leg seemed way less stiff. The crazy time acceleration and clean environment were healing him perfectly. Those 2 brown mares adapted even faster. They strolled around munching grass, already looking way healthier than they ever did at that filthy market. I loaded all the pens with fresh grass and tossed the old gray horse some extra. He would be my ultimate stallion once recovered. The mares just needed to eat well and grow super strong for future breeding. Looking at my little kingdom chickens scratch, rabbits hopping, horses happily chewing, I felt a massive wave of pure accomplishment. My secret animal breeding operation was finally up and running. Rounding the final hill, the imperial capital appeared, leaving me speechless. Next to this, my family's Blackstone castle looked like a tiny doghouse. The city walls were 3 times taller, packed with glowing magic towers. Massive gates swallowed endless rivers of people and carriages. In the northwest, enormous white crystal mage towers pierced the clouds. Colorful elemental energy flowed down their surfaces, and the air literally tasted like raw magic. That was the Imperial Magic Academy, my new home. Now pay attention here. Getting through the gates was easy, but standing before the Academy's obsidian gates, carved with glowing runes and guarded by moving stone gargoyles, I felt incredibly small. Inside was another universe. Green lawns, statues of legendary mages, people in colorful robes rushing everywhere, and magic so thick it made my hair float. Then came enrollment, and my wallet got absolutely destroyed. Tuition, 50 gold. Dorm, 30 gold a semester. Materials kit, 10 gold. 2 robes, 5 gold. 95 gold total. I totally emptied my father's money bag. And Edmund's secret gift. It physically hurt watching those coins leave my hands. In return, I got a dull ID tag, 2 gray robes, a bag with cheap magic crystals and blank scrolls, 1 bottle of basic meditation potion, and a paper reading, West District, Building 13, Room 404. The dorm itself was incredibly depressing. Just a plain 3-story stone building covered in vines. The hallway smelled like dust and highly suspicious food. The grumpy manager tossed me a key without looking up. Room 404 was ridiculously tiny. 4 beds, 1 wobbly table, 4 cabinets, a tiny window. 2 roommates were inside. A blonde noble kid sat polishing a fancy sapphire brooch, barely acknowledging me with a snobby sniff. Up on the top bunk, a skinny kid with thick glasses was buried inside a textbook, completely oblivious to everything. I sent Raymond away to find a cheap inn and work. I simply could not afford to keep him nearby. Sitting on my rock-hard bed in that cramped room, I felt miserable. At night, I entered my secret farm space. You seeing this? The wheat field was a golden ocean of ripe grain, yielding 30% more than normal farmland. The radishes were incredibly fat, crisp, and white, pushing halfway out of the rich dirt. My 3 little chicks had grown into magnificent full-size chickens, strutting around super proudly. The baby rabbits were plump adults with glossy fur, 1 female looking pregnant. But the horse pen was the absolute biggest surprise. The old gray horse had been totally reborn, mane thick and shiny, eyes bright, and that injured leg was stepping down firmly. He could even trot. The 2 brown mares were sleek, well-fed, and clearly ready for breeding. I harvested everything. Using my mind like a magical harvester, I swept the wheat field clean. Golden grain poured into storage. I pulled up rows of plump radishes that magically shook off their dirt and stacked themselves up neatly. I restocked all the animal pens with fresh grass and water, hooked the gray horse up with extra food, and gave him a nice brushing. Just looking at my massive grain stores and radish piles, my healthy animals, and my powered-up stallion, I finally felt genuinely happy for the first time since arriving in the capital. I fell asleep hugging that hard pillow, dreaming about my breeding program and the epic empire I would build from this secret farm. The next morning, I sat on my rock-hard bed, munching a crisp farm space radish and plotting out my very next big step. That gray horse basically reverse-aged in the space, muscles bulging, coat shining, stamping around, his pen completely bursting with raw, unstoppable energy. Those 2 brown mares were perfectly healthy and in their prime breeding years. It was time. I dove into the space to play matchmaker. I brought the excited horse over. Trust me, you will want to see what happens next. She panicked initially, but after some quick mental soothing, I threw that gate open. Boom! He bolted inside like pure lightning. Stick with me here, because what happened next was wild. Watching horses breed telepathically, I kept asking myself why a magic student was doing this. But hey, it absolutely worked. That old gray stallion strutted out looking 10 years younger. Next up, Mare B, same amazing result. His space-enhanced diet gave the old guy absolutely incredible, boundless stamina. After both rounds, I sent him straight back to his VIP pen for a huge meal and mental massage. I collapsed, feeling completely drained, worse than casting 100 spells. But honestly, the hype was way too real. What would these new foals become? Would they inherit those insane space-boosted traits? I constantly scanned the mares' bellies with my mind, just begging for any tiny sign of pregnancy. Meanwhile, magic classes officially kicked off. The basics, meditation, elemental sensing, magic, runes, and history. But then, I discovered something absolutely amazing. My earth knowledge was a total cheat code. Complex meditation pathways? I just visualized 3-dimensional anatomy diagrams from my past life. Easy. Elemental theories? I literally just reframed them as wave frequency matching. Magic runes? Broke them down into basic geometry and logic circuits. Everything clicked 100 times faster for me than everyone else. During our very first practical lesson, the instructor demonstrated basic light and breeze spells. Watch closely now. While others struggled with wobbly runes, I nailed both of those spells on my very first try. A tiny, perfect white light popped on my fingertip. A controlled breeze ruffled my hair. My roommates totally noticed. Roy Campbell, the snobby blonde noble, failed his light spell 3 times. He shot me. This hilarious mix of shock and jealousy. Finn, the nerdy bookworm, knew all the theory, but fumbled incredibly hard during actual practice. Then, the stone-faced, bald instructor, Mage Goodwin, stopped right beside my desk. He stared at my floating light and spinning breeze for 3 whole seconds, gave one tiny, almost invisible nod, and just walked away. That tiny nod sent massive ripples across the room. I played it cool, but inside, total victory dance. Sure, these were just baby tricks, practically worthless to pros, but acting like a genius, covered up my secret farming operation. The literal second class ended. I sprinted straight back to the dorm. My #1 priority? Checking if those mares were finally showing signs of pregnancy. Magic student by day, secret horse breeder by night. I lived a complete double life, and loved every single second. Days vanished in my double life. In class, I was the absolute theory whiz. Steady light spells like an LED. I could literally nudge Finn's glasses with the breeze without turning his pages. Instructor Goodwin looked genuinely pleased. I know what you're thinking. Roy glared, totally convinced I took secret extra lessons. Finn constantly bombarded me with insanely complex questions. I barely survived by faking my answers using basic earth science concepts. But my true focus was always those nighttime farm checks on the pregnant mares. I pampered them like a luxury midwife. Extra food, deep mental grooming, even attempted soothing spiritual music. Their bellies grew unbelievably fast thanks to the time acceleration. The pregnancy progressed in a tiny fraction of normal time. Then, one exhausting night after Finn completely fried my brain with advanced runes, I entered the space for a check, and heard it. A lively cry. She gave birth. A trembling dark brown foal struggled to stand beside her. It was noticeably massive for a newborn, easily a third heavier, based on what I remembered from family stable records. Its legs shook, but that core strength was remarkable. Within minutes, it stood, walked, and tried bouncing around. The energy was completely off the charts. Before I could even process that hype, Marebee's pen echoed with another cry. She had twins. Another massive, dark brown foal, bright-eyed and bursting with pure vitality. Both had thicker skeletons, denser bones, and better athletic instincts than normal newborns. Then came the absolute biggest shock. Another cry from Mare A's pen. She also had twins. This second one was totally different. A light gray coat with striking streaks of silver mane. Easily the biggest of the 3. Longer legs, flawless proportions, and eyes that held absolutely zero newborn confusion. Just calm, razor-sharp awareness. While the others struggled, this absolute beast barely tried before rising steadily to its feet. It lifted its head and surveyed everything like a born leader. It inherited the old stallion's best traits, massively amplified. I ran frantic mental measurements on all 3. You and I just witnessed greatness. Max vitality, huge stats, and the silver-maned absolute beast dominating every single category. Alright, you and I are jumping right in. These weren't your basic fire-breathing monsters, but their insane physical stats. Heavy bone structure, raw power, extreme agility, and that sharp, intelligent glare proved they completely outclassed any ordinary warhorse. They were the absolute ultimate battle horse prototype I had always dreamed about. I totally spoiled the exhausted mothers with double food rations and set up the absolute best recovery care. The proud old gray stallion watched from his pen, and I rewarded him with premium extra food and a deluxe mental massage. Lying on my hard bed later, I grinned like crazy. Roy's annoying attitude, Finn's impossible study questions, and the capital's insane living costs? None of that mattered anymore. I had fresh land, grain, chickens, rabbits, and 3 epic foals ready to completely change my family's future. Phase 1 of the optimized Warhorse project was a massive success. Life was awesome lately. I easily crushed all my academy classes, while Roy's totally frustrated face became my daily entertainment. Finn practically glued himself to me as a permanent study partner, tossing ridiculously hard questions that I barely survived by just totally bluffing my answers. But my absolute real joy was the farm space. Those 3 foals were growing ridiculously fast thanks to time acceleration, magic, and premium feed. In just a few short outside days, they completely shed all weakness and seriously bulked up. The 2 brown foals, A and B, boasted shiny coats with some serious muscles starting to show. They were so intensely energetic, spending all day chasing around and kicking up fresh hay. One of them literally shattered a wooden stump with a single hoof strike. I had to quickly remove their toys before they absolutely wrecked the pen. My special gray colt, Silvermane, was the star. His silver-streaked coat literally glowed like moonlight. He was the biggest, the fastest, and the most graceful. He loved standing on high spots, acting like a king, overlooking the whole ranch, completely intimidating the other 2 foals. His bones felt like pure steel. Now, watch what happens next. A letter from my brother Edmund arrived. Skipping past the usual warm greetings and our mom's tearful reminders to eat properly, Edmund dropped the real news. The northern border faced massive pressure from brutal ORC raiding parties. Our family's warhorses were being completely lost at an alarming rate. Even worse, this year's breeding barely produced 60% of the normal foal count, and the overall quality tanked too. The breeding stallions were seriously underperforming, and mares had terrible conception rates. Our dad was stressing out. Our family's military horse supply contracts and entire reputation were heavily at risk. Edmund sent a 50 gold coin note, telling me to ignore the family business and just study. But worry? Honestly, I was absolutely thrilled. This was the exact, perfect opportunity. My 3 magic space-bred foals were vastly superior to anything our family stables could produce. Their weight, bone density, strength, and energy absolutely crushed normal warhorse standards. My family desperately needed top-tier quality horses, and I had exactly that. I immediately sat down and wrote a carefully crafted reply. I couldn't mention the secret farm space, obviously. Instead, I spun a clever story. I claimed I stumbled across a broke horse trader near the capital selling unusual foals cheap. Using my academy life element research as an excuse, I bought 3 as study specimens. I said I observed them at a farm outside the city, and their physical development and crazy growth rate were totally extraordinary, way beyond normal horses. I generously offered to send all 3 foals home to fix the family shortage, cleverly framing it as a helpful family contribution, plus part of my magical research on biological optimization. I attached totally fake observation notes and wrapped everything in humble, eager-to-help language. Reading it back, I already pictured Edmund's hilariously confused face, wondering if his little brother just got scammed by some shady horse dealer. We both know the truth. Seeing those epic foals would turn their confusion into pure shock. I sealed it, grinning. Tomorrow, I'd make Raymond arrange a reliable merchant convoy to transport my 3 experimental specimens, my family's future gold mines, straight back to Blackstone City, getting the giant foals out of my secret space and into the real world without exposing my powers. That was the tricky part. I woke Raymond up way before dawn and told him we were going on a magical ecology field trip. He didn't even question it. We quietly snuck out of the academy, rented a covered cart, and rode to an abandoned quarry outside the city. Remote, rocky, absolutely zero witnesses. I sent Raymond ahead while I pretended to quietly commune with nature. Then I quickly entered the space, fitted simple leather halters on all 3 foals, and pulled them straight out. 3 flashes of light, and suddenly 3 incredibly impressive young horses stood firmly on the quarry stones. Silvermane announced his epic arrival with a proud, ringing cry. He planted his hooves on the rough gravel, scanning the area like a king inspecting new territory. Zero fear, just pure authority. The two brown fillies appeared right behind him, equally healthy and alert, curiously sniffing the fresh air. That's where we leave it. Thanks to accelerated growth, all three were already the size of yearlings. Stick with me here. Raymond literally almost passed out, jaw on the floor, eyes totally wide, stammering about where these epic horses originated. I was totally ready for this. Slapping on my most serious mage expression, I confidently claimed an insanely pricey spatial transfer scroll moved them from somewhere completely hidden, buying them straight from some totally broke, struggling horse trader. I heavily emphasized top secret and big money. Loyal Raymond just swallowed his massive shock and quickly swore absolute, complete silence. Then he really inspected them. Growing up surrounded by elite knights, he spotted absolute peak quality instantly. His final verdict: their bone structure was way thicker than our family stable's absolute best. Muscles packing insane explosive power. Coats shining with perfect health, plus eyes flashing with brilliant intelligence. Silvermane's majestic aura completely stunned him. He swore these beasts would become literal, absolute horse kings. We quickly sneaked the epic foals straight into our Wilson family's busy West Market office. Old manager Harold basically almost collapsed seeing them. Running our shipments for decades, the veteran could accurately judge any horse in one glance, even hidden under rough canvas. These legendary babies radiated a perfection no struggling merchant could ever naturally breed. He asked incredibly cautious questions. Leaning in, I whispered about using shady mage connections, costing an absolute fortune. Highly classified Wilson family business. Handing over ownership papers and a letter for Edmund, I ordered the absolute fastest, most secure transport to Blackstone City, demanding only premium expensive feed. Now watch closely. When Harold peeked under that cloth, seeing those glowing silver hairs and crazy, intelligent eyes, his hands shook with pure hype. He breathlessly muttered, our Wilson family destiny was about to completely shift. Giving the three beauties one final glance, they stood proudly, totally aware of their own legendary importance. Then I headed out, strolling back toward the academy with the completely stunned Raymond trailing behind. I felt incredibly happier than I had all month. The awesome package was away. Now, just eagerly awaited my family's chaotic reaction. Meanwhile, over in Blackstone City, my epic delivery arrived, basically causing an absolute massive farm earthquake. Old John, the grumpy veteran master who spent his whole life breeding mounts, took a single look at those foals stepping down and literally dropped his pipe into the dirt. The guy was completely speechless. Across decades of hard labor, he had never witnessed babies with such massive bones, powerful muscles, or terrifyingly sharp eyes. He loudly claimed Silvermane's frame looked more like a literal magical beast. The entire stable instantly erupted. Every single groom, young apprentice, and passing knight rushed the pen, completely refusing to believe their eyes. Tiny foals with massive yearling frames, wildly explosive energy, plus brilliant intelligence, no normal animal ever possessed. Silvermane just paraded peacefully around like a true king, accepting absolute worship. Those shiny silver hairs catching the bright sun. When one clumsy groom completely smashed an iron bucket, loudly, Silvermane barely even twitched an ear. The two amazing fillies jumped for a second, then completely chilled, smartly hunting the noise source. You realize how crazy this is, right? Literal veteran battlefield nerves, already naturally hardwired into these tiny babies. Edmund suddenly crashed into Dad's office, basically dragging the stunned old man straight outside. Dad was super stressed over annoying military paperwork, agonizing about major horse shortages and terrible finances. He honestly expected nothing from my little gift, but spotting Silvermane, everything instantly flipped upside down. Spending half his tough life fighting epic wars, Dad perfectly understood true warhorse requirements: insane power, crazy speed, endurance, and fearless spirit. He saw all those epic traits here, he whispered. Silvermane's fierce gaze mirrored his legendary favorite mount, Blackstone, who bravely fell in combat, probably even way stronger. Swinging that gate wide, Silvermane exploded into a blindingly fast sprint, a majestic gray blur, tearing around with incredibly smooth, unstoppable power, turning flawlessly. This insane agility surpassed what any young foal should have, beating most adult mounts easily. Dad just whispered, "Good." 3 straight times, his strict iron composure fully shattering with pure hype. His hands actually shook, grabbing his old pipe. He quickly scanned my goofy letter about finding a broke trader and purchasing them with spare change. Flashing a super rare smirk at Edmund, he playfully asked if he believed that crazy excuse. Edmund just chuckled and shook his head. "Trust me, you and I know these were impossible to buy openly, but honestly, Dad totally didn't care how I actually scored them. He instantly issued strict orders. Classify these 3 as supreme secret assets. Codenamed Silver Radiance, Brownstone 1, and Brownstone 2. Assign the absolute best elite grooms on endless shifts. Massively double their food rations, going way beyond the old Viscount's personal standards. Trust me, watch closely." Security tripled, and anyone within 10 steps became a literal traitor. The best part? Word went straight back to Doan. The horses arrived, and the family was incredibly happy. They told him to keep studying, promising full family support for his research. Any resources needed? Just ask. His strict father heavily emphasized the word research, acting exactly like a man realizing his second son was now the family's greatest treasure. Academy life was absolutely amazing. He easily breezed through the new water flow spell, leaving Roy completely eating his dust. The farm space, totally thriving. Second-generation chickens, cute rabbits, and another massive wheat harvest. Plus, that old gray stallion looked younger than ever. Still, he literally could not stop thinking about his family reacting to those 3 amazing foals. Suddenly, the dorm manager loudly pounded on his door, dropping off an urgent package. Pure shock. He almost crushed a radish inside his farm space before quickly ripping open the 2 heavy wax-sealed letters. One from his father, another from Edmund. That letter from Dad hit like a thunderbolt. This totally emotionless man actually called those foals the absolute greatest surprise in their recent horse breeding history. He even praised Silvermane, now codenamed Silver Radiance, for legendary bone structure. It had pure spirit beyond anything the veteran stable master saw in 3 whole generations. Old John was literally sleeping right next to Silver Radiance's feed trough, loudly calling it his career peak. Now pay attention here. The entire city hyped the Wilson family's dragon lineage foals. But trouble arrived fast. His dad absolutely demanded to know exactly where these horses originated. That vague story about a struggling horse trader definitely failed to convince him. He strictly demanded full details, warning that treasures attract danger, and hiding info about something this important was totally unacceptable. Edmund's letter was pure warmth. He described total stable chaos, knights going wild over Silver Radiance's speed, their father almost crushing his pipe, and old John treating those foals like legendary sacred relics. Their dad even drank an extra bowl of soup at dinner, which apparently counted as a wildly massive celebration. Then Edmund dropped the absolute best gift, a 200 gold coin note tucked safely inside. He told him to freely spend, eat well, buy any required materials, and simply ask if he wanted more. He even cheerfully offered to send additional guards or a helpful manager straight to the capital. Naturally, he also wanted the real source, gently hinting about hidden beast tamers or some crazy secret summoning magic. Let that sink in for a second. Holding 250 gold coins total, his family status completely shifted overnight. He was no longer the forgettable second son. He just casually solved his family's absolute biggest problem. Now, he just had to handle Dad's questions. He wrote back a carefully crafted story about some mysterious old hermit outside the capital, practicing life, nurturing arts, and raising awesome horses in a hidden place filled with magical energy. The old man sold the foals, shared a few feeding tips, then dramatically vanished, declaring their fated encounter officially over. Impossible to verify or disprove. He even included a simplified version of his space grass feeding method for maximum believability. For Edmund, he wrote something much warmer, thanking him for the cash, joking about finally eating meat, and teasing that this reliable secret source might easily produce even more epic treasures later on. Sealing both letters, he sat back, feeling the heavy banknote against his chest. His position had absolutely and totally transformed. His strict father used the word surprise, while his super practical brother was literally throwing gold. The family's main business problem of warhorse quality finally had a clear solution, and he actually provided it. With fresh capital, upgrade time arrived, better seeds, magical beast cubs, and expanded operations. This secret farm was about to massively level up. Sitting on his creaky bed, touching that 200 gold coin note from Edmund, he suddenly felt totally dissatisfied with his farm space for the very first time. Not because it was failing, it was working beautifully. Golden wheat, fat radishes, healthy livestock, and that old gray horse looking amazing. The only problem? All of it was worth practically nothing. Selling a massive cartload of premium radishes in the capital only earned literal pocket change. Using a time-accelerating magical space for ordinary vegetables was like driving a race car to deliver daily newspapers. Completely wasted potential. That warhorse experiment proved what real value actually looked like. 3 foals cracked his father's iron composure and made his brother shower him with gold. Why? They solved a major problem. Hitting the family's biggest pain point made everything click. He needed to grow actual magical plants, not ordinary radishes. Take basic hemostasis. Grass, totally common and cheap. But what if space-optimized versions magically doubled that healing power? Armies would fight over it. You and I know concentration flowers equal 1 gold each. Stick with me here. If I boosted their power by 30% with fewer side effects, every single magic student would want them. Plus higher-tier magical plants, ingredients for fire potions, longevity elixirs, and breakthrough medicines. Those were strategic resources that powerful mages and great nobles would gladly pay absolute fortunes for. Accelerated growth combined with optimization could turn my farm into a magical plant factory. Stronger effects, shorter cycles, higher yields, and way better quality. Plus, if I actually learned alchemy, those crazy profits would multiply exponentially. Growing radishes while sitting on this massive gold mine was literally begging with a golden bowl. Then I really thought about my position. Inheriting a title was impossible. My father was incredibly healthy, and Edmund's position as the true heir was completely rock solid. Staying under the family wing just meant being a glorified servant with a fancy title. Constantly watched, totally unable to explain where my magical plants came from without the lies. Getting more and more ridiculous. The academy was safer, but way too restrictive. Everything was expensive, eyes were everywhere, and there was zero room for large-scale operations. The massive capital was a stepping stone. My real goal finally crystallized. Watch closely. I'd build enough power to claim my own northern territory someday, becoming an independent lord, not a dependent second son. I quickly mapped out my plan. First, master alchemy. That was the crucial skill. Push incredibly hard in Instructor Goodwin's classes and squeeze every drop of knowledge from Finn, the bookworm. Second, definitely learn combat and survival magic. Fireballs, sturdy shields, speed spells. Third, use every gold coin and connection to acquire magical plant seeds. Hemostasis grass, concentration flowers, fire, tender grass, ice crystal moss. Honestly, anything I could find through academy channels or the capital's shady black market. Fill all 10 acres with magical crops. Step 4. Build a team. Raymond was loyal but limited. I needed capable people, struggling warriors, herbalist commoners, and rejected alchemy apprentices. Fifth, start collecting low-level magical beast cubs and magic cores through the mercenary guild. raise them inside my space ranch, stockpile cores, and eventually build an enhanced personal guard. Sixth, carefully maintain the family pipeline. Keep writing letters to my father and Edmund, reporting academic progress, and subtly hinting at research interests in magical plants for northern logistics improvement. Keep that promising young scholar image alive. Never let Edmund's gold supply completely dry up. When the time was absolutely perfect, money sufficient, team reliable, magical plant stockpile overflowing, and skills sharp, I would break free, apply for a northern development charter, claim my own land, and build my own power base. I would step into the open as a talented alchemist, freely trading enhanced healing potions and concentration elixirs on equal terms with the family, and even the royal military. Let's be real, no more fake hermit stories, just undeniable value. I quickly wrote Edmund back, filling my letter with enthusiastic talk about researching magical plant cultivation for harsh environments and basic potion brewing. Then I casually mentioned that magical materials were painfully expensive in the capital, and politely asked if he could send some common hemostasis grass and concentration flower seeds from the south. Every word painted me as a devoted son thinking about the family's bright future. I tucked the banknote against my chest and looked out at the glowing Mage towers. Basic radishes were finished. The next chapter was magical plants, gold, allies, and eventually, total freedom. The second son's chains would completely break. It was just a matter of time. I hit the academy library like a man on a mission, literally dragging Raymond behind me as a human bookshelf. I grabbed every single book on basic alchemy and magical plants I could find, potion recipes, plant cultivation guides, and ingredient lists. I wasn't interested in boring theory. I wanted formulas and shopping lists. The numbers were beautiful. A low-level meditation potion cost about 2 gold coins in materials, but sold for 5 to 10. Healing salves, energy drinks, all had crazy fat profit margins. The key ingredients were common magical plants, concentration flowers, hemostasis grass, awakening mint, and moonlight grass. Exactly the kind of amazing things my space could supercharge. I headed to the Academy's material shop first. One look at those ridiculous prices, and I walked right out. 1 gold coin for a mediocre concentration flower seedling was absolute highway robbery. Instead, I quickly dragged Raymond to the West Market Black Street, a grimy maze of shady vendors selling everything from fake antiques to stolen magical items. Honestly, most of what the vendors had was pure garbage. Dried out seeds, wilting plants, completely worthless leaves. But hiding in a quiet corner, I found a silent merchant with decent stock. Living hemostasis grass, budding concentration flowers, and fresh awakening mint, all with noticeably stronger life energy than the rest. I haggled super hard and bought 3 bunches of hemostasis grass, 3 concentration flowers, 2 mint plants, and a packet of moonlight grass seeds. My wallet cried, but trust me, it was worth it. Let's dive in. Back in my space, I planted everything. The results? Absolutely mind-blowing. With double-speed growth kicking in, the dying hemostasis, grass revived, flexing bright green, high-energy leaves. The concentration flower buds slowly bloomed, flashing glowing silver patterns and giving off a super calming aura way stronger than normal. The mint popped vibrant green leaves, giving off pure frosty vibes. Moonlight grass seeds sprouted in just hours, tiny leaves already flashing silver specks. Space optimization on magical plants? Total success. Next up on the list, making potions. I rented out a tiny academy alchemy lab. Basically a broom closet featuring a rusty cauldron, glass tubes, and a heating circle. 5 silver coins hourly. Bring your own materials. My very first healing salve attempt? Total explosion. The mix bubbled dark green, violently blasting hot, burnt sludge directly into my face. Raymond peeked inside, looking genuinely terrified. I was brewing poison. Alright, attempt number 2, energy drink. I completely messed up the temp control, melting everything into foul-smelling black sludge. More cash down the drain. Third try, meditation potion. I went full focus mode, locking the temperature down with my mind and following the recipe flawlessly. Slowly, the muddy liquid cleared up, shifting to a stunning pale blue, giving off a clean scent with tiny floating silver sparkles. It actually worked. Now watch this move. I took the potion straight to a shady black market dealer who bought questionable magical goods. He tested it, looking pretty shocked. He said the energy was incredibly pure, way stronger than basic apprentice stuff. We locked in 6 gold coins. My original cost? Barely 2. That's a solid for gold profit on just 1 bottle. Pockets feeling heavy, I marched straight to the live creature market near the mercenary guild. The smell was absolutely horrible, but I found my target. 2 steel-tooth rabbit cubs and an earth shell lizard cub. The absolute cheapest, tamest magical beasts out there. 3.5 gold total. I sneaked them into my space, dropping them into empty pens, where they immediately began happily sniffing around the fresh green grass. Lying on my stiff bed that night, completely drained, but smiling, reviewed everything. Magical plants, growing beautifully. First potion, brewed and sold for pure profit. First magical beast cubs, safely bought and housed in the space. You and I know my alchemy skills are embarrassing, but the master plan is working. The assembly line is officially running. Grow magical plants, brew potions, sell them, buy more seeds and beast cubs, then repeat. Every single loop means more efficiency and more cash. The farming mage empire is born. Meanwhile, my magical plants were going completely insane in the space. The hemostasis grass sprouted massive, tough leaves with razor-sharp edges, pumping out wild amounts of medicinal energy. The concentration flowers bloomed with glowing silver. Magic, pushing out a relaxing aura so heavy it wiped away my study fatigue faster than store-bought potions. The moonlight grass grew sparkling silver specks overnight. We are talking pure lunar energy, breaking way past the normal limits. And that awakening mint grew huge, juicy leaves packing a kick so intense. Just thinking about the smell felt like getting hit with ice needles. My space warehouse was completely overloaded with top-tier magical plants. Those boring old radishes and wheat sat in the corner looking pathetic. I was finally ready to make serious bank. Bursting with epic confidence, I strutted into the academy's public lab, slammed down 5 silver coins, and started. First attempt, making healing salve. I melted that beeswax flawlessly, then I crushed up my premium hemostasis grass and dropped the juice inside. The cauldron went absolutely crazy. The liquid turned pitch black, swelled up like a furious volcano, blasted the lid clean off, and shot scorching green slime right into my face. The remaining sludge looked like toxic waste. Slapping that on a wound would definitely cause an infection, not heal it. Second attempt, energy drink. I carefully heated the water, added the root at the perfect temp, and gently dropped in 1 leaf of my legendary awakening mint. The water instantly blew up into a muddy brown foam, reeking of expired candy and dirty mud. Drinking that wouldn't wake you up, it would mentally destroy you. Raymond peeked in, hoping the slightly less terrible smell meant a win. I barked back that I was doing reverse material testing. Super advanced stuff. You wouldn't understand. He backed away, totally confused, staring at 2 ruined batches and my trashed premium ingredients. All my farming-fueled confidence crashed completely. Top-tier ingredients literally mean nothing if the chef is horrible. Think about it with me. I had the city's best plants and the absolute worst alchemy skills on campus. The painful reality hit super hard. Space farming was only half the battle here. Without solid alchemy skills, I was basically turning pure gold into trash. I needed serious library sessions, instructor help, and practice until my hands stopped making explosions. Stick with me. Staring at that burnt cauldron, our MC makes a massive vow. He will master this alchemy even if it ruins him. God-tier items and insane skills, that is the only winning combo. He drags himself back to the dorms, looking absolutely drained and completely exhausted. His wallet is totally empty, his pride is crushed. And those two massive potion disasters are haunting his mind. Great materials with garbage skills is like having a master kitchen, but burning plain noodles. Still, quitting is absolutely not an option for our guy. He grabs every single alchemy textbook, snatching them off Finn's desk so fast, the poor guy's glasses almost fly away. Finn just stares, wondering what on earth snapped in his brain. Meanwhile, our MC buries himself in the library's alchemy zone for hours. The theory is absolutely brutal. Element charts, energy models, and hardcore stability limits. Way harder than any math from Earth. But he powers through, translating the madness into simple concepts he can actually grasp. Slowly, those crazy failures make sense. That first explosion, his premium hemostasis grass was simply way too strong for cheap beeswax, and he forgot to cool the heat in time. The second disaster came from mixing clashing ingredients without waking up the weaker plant. First, total rookie mistake. Both times, he basically treated magic alchemy like dumping random veggies in a soup pot and praying hard. These texts reveal that a real mage's spiritual energy needs to operate like a flawless precision tool inside the cauldron, constantly feeling energy shifts and adjusting. His power was basically a blind stick poking a fire. So tonight, zero sleep. He jumped straight into his magical farm space to train, sitting cross-legged among glowing magical plants. He breathes an element-rich air that is insanely thick. Since this space runs at double speed, every real-world hour gives him 2 full hours of perfect, totally uninterrupted focus time. Going deep into focus mode, his spiritual energy expands fast, like a dry sponge absorbing water. Suddenly, all those wild textbook theories click into place. Now, pay attention. Here, this is where everything changes. You can almost feel those elements dancing as his spiritual power finally hits. A massive breakthrough. Boom. Something bursts open in his brain like a shattered dam. A silent shockwave of pure clarity and raw power hits. Everything inside the farm space gets incredibly sharp. He spots tiny leaf veins and hears the humming elements. His mental grip is insanely precise now. Boom. He has officially leveled up to junior mage status. Snapping back to reality, he tests this immediately. His light spell creates a massive, stable glow, way stronger than before, holding strong for 10 minutes. And his breeze spell? Absolute pinpoint accuracy. Now, he effortlessly ruffles specific pages on Finn's desk without moving anything else. But the best part, his mental stirring rod for alchemy transforms from a sloppy stick into absolute perfection. Doing a quick mental run, he actually feels the energy vibes of his imaginary ingredients with a crazy new level of extreme sensitivity. He senses exactly when to heat, cool, and blend things together. Those embarrassing potion disasters are officially a thing of the past. He is beyond ready. It is time to march back to that cauldron and show it exactly who runs the show. You and I knew he would bounce back, right? Hitting junior mage changes the game. Stepping into that cramped lab booth, he is a totally new beast. Healing salve, smooth as butter. His upgraded energy senses the exact second the hemostasis grass tries to overpower the beeswax, allowing him to cool things off at the absolute perfect moment. Boom! A deep green paste with the fresh scent pops out, 100 times better than his old trash. Energy drinks are even easier. He balances sharp mint and sluggish vitality root like a true master. Bartender mixing up some magic cocktails. Clear, pale green, and super potent. His success rate shoots past 60%, making those wild explosions ancient history. He takes this massive new potion stash straight to Old Lame Jack Underground. The guy tastes it, raises an eyebrow, and admits it is way above standard apprentice garbage. Time to haggle hard. 7 gold for the healing salve, 6.5 for energy drinks. Since his farm ingredients cost 0, this is pure profit. His pockets are getting heavy again, but cash alone will not cut it. He cannot build a whole northern territory alone. He needs loyal, strong people to work for him. Then, a wild idea hits. He basically hacked his way to Junior Mage using his secret space and crazy potions. What about the kids labeled as trash talent? The ones those snobby nobles completely reject. So what do you and I take from this? With his secret space, he is about to build an unstoppable army of underdog mages from scratch. Nature kids speed up crops. Earth kids totally handle the heavy construction. Come along with me here, we needed a crew. So we hit the Blackburn Fence District Market. This place was a complete nightmare. Rusty cages, cracking whips, and total despair filling the filthy streets. Honestly, it was completely sickening to see. But I wasn't there playing the hero today, had a specific mission. I was searching for absolute diamonds in the rough. We walked into a huge spot called the Skull and Coin Society. They had enough resources to run actual magic aptitude tests on their groups. Quietly sending out my spiritual aura, I scanned every single caged kid. Mostly, just total, empty silence. Zero magic spark. But after exhausting work, boom, I found 5. 3 boys, 2 girls, ages 10 to 15. Starving and wild-eyed, yet their magical signatures, completely loud and clear. 3 had nature energy, 2 had earth magic. Faint as a tiny candle in the wind, sure, but undeniably real. That shady merchant demanded 100 gold coins. I haggled him down to 65. He totally thought I was crazy. Buying weak talent? Only good for cleaning alchemy lab floors, right? He had zero clue what my actual plan was. Magic contracts signed. I grabbed my 5 shaking kids and finally ditched that horrible place. With Raymond guarding our backs. Now, watch closely looking at these terrified kids huddled together. I definitely didn't see waste. I saw my epic builders, my farming squad. The literal foundation for everything I planned to build up north. Walking those 5 frightened kids out of that market felt exactly like carrying fragile glass. That could just shatter anytime. I brought them straight to Oak House, a simple little rented spot I prepared. Hidden safely in the academy's quiet outer district. Super simple, but it offered a courtyard, clean walls, privacy, and safety. The kids froze at the door, staring at the clean floors like they couldn't believe an intact roof was real. No cages here, no whips either. The very first move, tossing out their horrible old numbers. Grass 7, grass 8, dirt 5, gone forever. I walked right down the line and gave every single kid a proper, real name. The stubborn kid became Carl, the sharp one Amir, stocky Bart, super shy Leah, and finally, tiny little Ella. I promised them this was their fresh start. They would learn, grow up, and eventually become proud Wilson family retainers. Not property, but real people with actual respect and standing in society. Freedom? That hit them incredibly hard. Carl just touched his branded wrist. Words are nice, sure, but talking means absolutely nothing to completely starving kids. So Raymond cooked up a massive feast. Sizzling smoked meat, fresh radishes, and cabbage straight from my magical farm space. As that incredible smell hit Oak House, their stomachs literally roared together. Real meat? It had been absolute ages. Holding those steaming bowls, their tiny hands shook so hard the soup almost spilled over. Tiny Ella completely forgot all her fear, just burying her nose into the food. We both felt that one, right? Eating with their heads down, crying into their broth. Good hot food is the ultimate way to thaw frozen hearts. After eating, we gathered around the big table. Forget magic for now, they needed absolute basics, like reading. I tossed Raymond chalk slates and immediately made him the literacy teacher. His face completely dropped. Fighting bandits? Super easy. Teaching kids letters? Pure torture. But he grabbed the slate, breathed deep, and shouted at maximum volume. This word is person. Left stroke, right stroke. Standing tall. That's a person. You are all real people now, understand? The kids practically jumped. Louder, he yelled. Didn't you just eat? Say it loud with me right now. Person. Person. They screamed back, faces totally red. Rough? Yeah, but super effective. Raymond's massive roar proved they were humans. And that incredible memory stuck. As night finally fell, Oil lamps cast a cozy, warm light across the room. The kids stayed on the floor, focusing incredibly hard, writing their very first word over and over with charcoal. Leah pressed down so hard her cheeks turned bright red, then gently walked them through some basic meditation, just breathing, totally relaxing, and feeling that gentle lamp warmth mixing with the cool breeze outside. No resistance at all this time. I quietly wrapped my spiritual power around them, letting that pure farm vitality cover the room like an invisible, warm blanket. Oak House fell perfectly silent. 5 recovering kids were taking their very first massive step toward a beautifully bright future they never even dared to imagine. You and I just witnessed history. My epic future team was finally taking shape. Next morning, Raymond started his booming literacy lessons. These kids learned insanely fast, snapping to absolute attention the second they saw that chalk slate. Little Leah was super motivated after a tiny green glow sparked on her finger during meditation. That tiny spark was everything. But you and I both know balancing cash and magic is no joke. I needed serious help. Roy was way too snobby for this, but my bookworm roommate, Finn, absolutely perfect. The guy knew everything, but stunk at actual magic. I patted his shoulder, offering a trade. Teach my kids basic magic theory, and I would supply him with endless premium meditation potions. He stared at the glowing blue bottle, fought his own thoughts for 3 whole seconds, then finally agreed. Pro-teaching for the kids meant I could fully focus on business. If Finn panicked over their terribly low talent later, I would handle that problem then. With the kids sorted, I jumped into my farm space to check on the animals. Those steel-toothed rabbits were super busy. 1 normal month meant 3 whole months in these sped-up pens. The female already had fluffy babies with giant white teeth, growing at an insanely fast rate. Meanwhile, that lazy earthshell lizard just chilled in its sandpit, doing absolutely zero work. I mentally nudged its hard shell. It blinked one eye and snoozed again. Looking over at the huge adult male rabbit, a genuinely crazy idea hit me. Radishes and smoked snacks were getting boring. Why not taste magical beast? I dragged the rabbit straight to the processing workshop. The magical tools sprang to life, instantly prepping, sorting, and slicing everything perfectly. The fresh cuts actually had visible glowing earth energy running right through them. My mouth watered instantly. Now, pay attention, because here is where it gets truly wild. The glowing workshop suddenly popped out a tiny, warm crystal covered in stunning patterns. A real magic core. I was completely stunned. Library books strictly said these rabbits are the absolute weakest earth beasts around. Normally, only 1 out of 10 adults ever manages to form a magic core. Yet this young rabbit had dropped one right away. Even basic cores sold for several gold coins. And they were super essential items for crafting so many epic magical potions and gear. Was this pure luck, or did my magic space secretly boost core drop rates? I absolutely had to test this. I sprinted to the market and grabbed 5 more steel-tooth rabbits. 2 males, 3 females, costing 5 gold coins total. I tossed them right into my magic space, giving them their own little pens next to the first family. Looking at my new fluffy army, I held that warm core, feeling its awesome earth energy pulsing in my hand. You and I know this changes everything. If cheap rabbits drop cores, it is game over. This meant endless gold and unlimited crafting supplies for my future alchemy projects. I just beamed at my little rabbits like the absolute proudest grandpa ever. Eat up, grow fast, and multiply. This farm space kept throwing amazing surprises at me, making my dreams even bigger. 3 months vanished in a flash. Over at Oak House, the kids were actually improving. Leah held that bright green glow for 3 whole breaths. It was a tiny spark, but legendary for someone with low talent. Bard literally made the ground shake a bit. Carl and Amir lagged behind, but their fiery determination was unmatched. Running on my fancy potions, Finn magically turned these supposed rejects into actual, working magic apprentices. Over on the space ranch, total explosion. Those rabbits multiplied like crazy machines under the triple time boost. 3 outside months meant 9 months inside. They completely maxed out. 2 huge enclosures, filling 50 slots each, wall-to-wall fuzzy rabbits, munching down grass like it was popcorn. Controlling them mentally was totally draining, like commanding an army. But the final reward? Absolutely mind-blowing. A giant mountain of magic cores sat right in my warehouse. Tons of warm, yellow-brown crystals the size of fingernails. Every single one pulsed with rich earth energy. After harvesting dozens of adults, I finally confirmed the impossible truth. Every fully grown rabbit inside this space dropped a core. A perfect 100% success rate. Outside, a 10% chance was amazing. I was sitting on hundreds of cores worth thousands of gold coins. But selling them was dangerous. Flooding the market with that many cores would easily trigger massive red flags. I scoured the library for ways to use bulk cores. But most magic items only required super tiny amounts. Cool weapons, magical lamps, and basic strength potions. They only used a handful at best. My crystal mountain was barely shrinking, until my snobby roommate Roy accidentally handed me the ultimate solution. He heard me complaining and started flexing his rich kid knowledge, laughing at low-level cores like they were pure trash. But trust me, you're going to love this part. He mentioned a dusty family recipe his fancy clan considered totally useless. The lineage potion. Stick with me. This is wild. It used magic cores and specific plants to forcibly awaken combat energy in ordinary people, turning complete nobodies into apprentice-level knights instantly. The big catch: whatever tier of core you used locked their power ceiling permanently. First-tier cores meant they would never pass apprentice level. Roy's rich family called this trash. Why waste resources on capped fighters when you can train real knights? But inside my head, massive fireworks were exploding. Roy knew nothing about my secret space. He had no idea I possessed unlimited free cores. The math was beautiful. Normal knight training required years of expensive prep with uncertain results. This formula could mass-produce basic fighters instantly at basically zero cost. Up north, where I planned to build my territory, I did not need elite warriors. I just needed numbers. Soldiers to wear heavy armor, swing real weapons, and fight raiding ORC parties. Look, a capped apprentice knight still equaled 10 normal militia, and I could easily make hundreds today. I played it super cool, acting totally disappointed about the cap. Roy offered to trade his garbage recipe for my improved meditation potion formula. He thought he was totally fleecing me. I pretended to agonize over the deal, then reluctantly agreed. He tossed me that yellowed old scroll like pure trash. I handed over a modified potion recipe. Definitely good, but nowhere near my best version. Roy went right back to combing his golden hair, humming smugly to himself. You are going to love this part. Clutched like a kingdom key, I stared at my massive core mountain. Forget storage problems. I was looking at a full-blown army. Oak House was finally showing real results. While my magical ranch kept churning out endless cores, growing that yellow mountain daily, my true focus stayed locked on the 5 kids. Months of Finn teaching theory, Raymond shouting through literacy class, and my magical space energy had finally shattered right through their incredibly low talent ceilings. The huge breakthrough happened during Finn's magic lecture. Lee sat in her usual corner, absently touching a floor crack. Suddenly, Finn stopped talking completely. Right inside that crack, a few completely shriveled weed seeds actually started trembling. Then a tiny green sprout pushed right up through soil. It lasted barely 1 second before wilting when Lee ran out of power, but everyone saw it. Amir looked absolutely shocked, while Carl's voice visibly shook. Finn could not explain how someone with awful talent just cast natural revival magic. Lee stared at her finger, bursting into tears, not from sadness, but the overwhelming realization she actually had real magic power now. Just days later, Bard had his epic moment. I pointed at some rubble, telling him to imagine those hard stones as moldable clay in his hands. Turning red as a tomato with bulging veins, he screamed, "Rise!" A fist-sized rock wobbled right up, hovering crookedly for 3 seconds before crashing down, nearly crushing his poor toes. Totally ugly, brief, but absolutely real. The earth element had actually answered him. These epic breakthroughs meant all 5 kids crossed into true magic apprentice territory. You and I know this is slow, but for me, perfect. Meanwhile, my library habits drew unwanted attention. I basically became a permanent fixture in the nature and earth magic sections, grabbing books like How to Boost Crop Yields with Natural Magic and 12 Basic Rune Patterns for Reinforcing Walls, plus practical farming and construction guides, which was exactly what my kids needed, but completely bizarre for a fire affinity magic prodigy. Instructor Goodwin totally noticed. He appeared behind me like a literal ghost one day, his extremely rough voice demanding why I studied applied techniques instead of proper combat magic. I nervously fumbled an excuse about wanting to help people grow more food and build stronger houses. He glared like I just insulted the entire magical profession, then walked away without saying another word, but his intense stare stuck to my back like crazy glue. He also spotted me in the alchemy lab, burning through endless cores while practicing the secret lineage formula. My technique kept improving steadily, although occasional puffs of yellow smoke and weird crystal sounds still escaped my booth. Goodwin silently watched through the door crack, a fiery genius, completely ignoring attack spells to study farming, construction, and bizarre core potions. It clearly completely baffled him. Then, days later, he finally made his move. Reaching for another farming manual, a massive gold-embossed book suddenly slammed down right onto the library table directly in front of me. Fundamentals of Elemental Life Alchemy, by Goodwin himself. He warned that reading tricks without understanding deep principles would never make me a real mage. This heavy book might answer the tough questions I struggled with during core potion experiments. Then he slowly placed a bronze badge carved with crazy complex runes atop the book. Trust me, you are not ready for this. A restricted floor pass for resources totally off limits to ordinary students. Stick with me here. He vanished like a phantom into those bookshelves. I just stood there, heart pounding, holding his personal textbook and an exclusive academy access pass. That grumpy old instructor watching me like a hawk? He literally just handed over the exact knowledge I needed to massively level up my alchemy and magical plant research. The oak house sprouts were finally growing, and somehow I had caught the attention of the academy top dog. Instead of getting in trouble, I got handed an epic new fishing rod. Our oak house courtyard got a complete makeover. Raymond chopped those weedy corners into neat test plots. My apprentices were officially starting their practical training with farming and construction magic. I lined up the nature affinity kids right in front of the garden beds. Lee practiced plant growth acceleration, Carl trained life for sensing, and Amir assisted while trying to learn strict energy control. I handed out basic radish and cabbage seeds. No premium space items for practice today. Lee buried her seeds carefully, pressed her palms to the dirt, and gently channeled spiritual power downward, trying her hardest to coax the little plants awake. Carl crouched at another garden bed, sending invisible magical feelers underground to accurately detect the buried seeds. Amir, predictably, slammed both his hands down and shouted to grow. His spiritual power hit those seeds like an absolute earthquake. Most of them flipped upside down or split wide open, completely ruined. I scolded him for making seed pancakes, while he just scratched his head sheepishly. Now watch closely, because I had a genius idea. My enhanced meditation potions were way too intense for rookies. So, heavily diluting them, I mixed a barrel of barely tinted magical nutrient water and made everyone drink a bowl. Lee felt the mental fog finally lift. Carl got sharper, sensing. Even Amir found his wild energy became slightly more manageable. By the end of our session, Lee had radish seeds pushing out 2 tiny yellow leaves. They were weak and wobbly, but totally alive. Carl had cabbage seeds slowly poking through the surface. Amir had 1 surviving seed, producing a crooked, traumatized sprout that seemed to be protesting its owner and his violence. Still, progress is progress. Meanwhile, I put the Earth Affinity duo to hard work. Bard got wet clay and strict instructions to shape proper building bricks using his natural Elemental connection. The kid absolutely loved playing with mud. Plus, his natural feel for earth elements made the clay surprisingly cooperative. He produced a lopsided, but recognizable rectangular brick. Future mason officially confirmed. Ella had the much harder job, trying to reinforce ordinary stones by pushing earth energy into their structure, but stone resisted her weak power completely. She nearly cried from pure frustration. I told her to be patient and gently feel for the tiny gaps inside the rock. Bard actually came over to help, pressing his hand against the hard stone and describing exactly what he sensed. It was packed tight inside, leaving no room to push anything in. Crude analysis, but vastly more insight than Ella managed alone. You and I both know it was time to level up. Instead of playing with rocks at the table, I told them to use earth sensing to survey the ground around Oak House. Find loose stone deposits for epic building material. Find quality clay layers for brick making. Bard threw himself flat on the ground, jammed his hands into the dirt, and started listening to the earth like a total veteran prospector. Within minutes, he was pointing and excitedly shouting. A loose gravel layer to the east. Extra sticky clay deposit toward the southwest. Raymond grabbed a pickaxe and verified both amazing finds. The eastern dig revealed highly usable crushed stone for solid foundations and paths. The southwestern clay sample was far stickier and vastly better quality than ordinary mud. I slapped Bard on the back so hard he literally stumbled. The kid beamed with intense pride. Ella smiled through her dried tears, finally feeling totally useful too. Standing in the middle of my little courtyard, looking at crooked sprouts, raw stone, and good clay piled up, my sweaty apprentices were just grinning with pure accomplishment. I honestly felt like a foreman surveying an epic construction site. Crooked seedlings were still seedlings. Gravel was still awesome building material. Sticky clay could totally still make walls. My farming mage squad and construction crew were coming together, one messy step at a time. The northern frontier had zero idea what was heading its way. While my apprentices practiced their farming and construction magic at Oak House, I snuck back to the Academy Alchemy Lab with that trash recipe and space-grown magic cores. The Mystic Lineage Potion, my absolute ticket to building a northern army. The recipe looks surprisingly straightforward. Ground magic core powder as the main ingredient, plus hemostasis grass powder, orchid flower petals, moonlight grass, and pure water. But the instructions literally said, walk on thin ice. For the difficulty level, first attempt, I ground the core into fine powder, dumped everything right in, and immediately lit up the magical heating array. The magic core earth energy exploded like a waking beast the instant it finally hit the water. The grass energy clashed violently. The lid blew off, spraying nasty yellow smoke everywhere. Trust me, and I definitely want to see how he fixes this massive mess. I coughed, staring at foul swamp sludge. Stick with me, we are attempting some wild alchemy. Second try, I switched the order, tossing in orchid petals first to suit that earth energy before the hemostasis grass. It worked great at first, until the cool orchid energy just aggravated the hemostasis grass. The liquid turned a rotten crimson shade, and a sweet, toxic fog bubbled up, making me super dizzy and totally nauseous. The leftovers hardened into a creepy dark red crystal. Another core ruined. Third try, added moonlight grass for extra stability. It actually kept things together. Zero explosions, no toxic gas. I started the final fusion phase feeling absolute victory approaching, but then dropped my focus for one tiny split second. The mixture instantly seized, hardening into a solid brown lump like cheap ore. Third core completely ruined. 3 epic failures, 3 wasted cores. But hey, I finally figured out the pattern. Balance and timing meant everything. Now watch closely. Read this 4th attempt incredibly carefully. Lowest possible heat. Orchid petals dropped first as a gentle buffer. Moonlight grass for stabilization. Then the hemostasis grass. Not dumped in, but sprinkled grain by grain, in spiritual power, slowly dissolving into the energy mixture. No explosions, no smoke, no hardening. The liquid slowly shifted into a thick, muddy, Dark red sludge that smelled exactly like rusty dirt. Totally disgusting, sure, but the energy trapped inside was chaotic and powerfully active. I had done it, maybe, but I was not drinking it. I borrowed a lab mouse, locked it inside an iron cage, and dripped the tiniest single drop into its water bowl. The tiny guy sniffed, sneezed at the terrible smell, then took a lick. 2 seconds later, it shrieked. Its fur spiked straight up, eyes glowing bright red, and it launched itself at the iron bars with terrifying strength and speed, easily doubling its normal power. The sturdy cage rattled and shook from the creature's assault, but barely a minute later, the mouse completely collapsed. Muscles went limp, breathing turning ragged. It lay exhausted at the cage bottom, still twitching with leftover aggression, way too tired to even nibble its absolute favorite grain. I stared at the ugly red sludge inside my bottle, then at the totally exhausted mouse. The lineage potion worked. It absolutely, undeniably worked. The power boost was real and dramatic, but the side effects were brutal, bringing total exhaustion and lingering aggression. This recipe needed serious refinement, better control, smoother energy fusion, and fewer side effects. But the concept was successfully proven. Space-grown magic cores could totally fuel this thing, easily supercharging a living body. I tucked the glass bottle against my chest like a literal ticking bomb, staring at my massive, ever-growing mountain of magic cores. You see where this is going, right? My Northern Night Army was becoming reality. Down in the Oak House basement, sitting under a flickering oil lamp, I faced old Jack, a veteran Wilson family guard with a scarred face and graying hair. Years ago, they called him Broken Blade Jack after he defeated 3 bad guys using a chipped sword. But a nasty injury left him permanently stuck below apprentice knight level for decades, reduced to simply guarding doors. I revealed my crystal bottle of lineage potion, that thick, muddy, dark red sludge, smelling exactly like old rust and swamp dirt. I gave him the absolute truth. This potion could easily push him past his limits, granting real combat energy, but it could also destroy him completely. My animal tests showed insane power boosts, but also violent episodes and dangerous exhaustion. I couldn't guarantee his absolute safety. Raymond jumped in with passionate encouragement, hyping up Jack's old glory days and his fierce loyalty to the family. Jack's hands trembled, staring at the bottle. The basement went completely silent for a long time. Then, his cloudy eyes suddenly sparked with pure, fierce determination. He declared his life belonged to the Wilson family anyway. Better to gamble than rot as a simple doorman. He snatched the bottle, ripped out the cork, and downed every drop without hesitation. The taste almost made him gag, like swallowing rust-flavored mud. He forced it down, then his body exploded with pain. He roared like a wild beast, curling up as thick veins bulged across his skin. His muscles visibly swelled, straining his old leather armor. Yellowish energy, raw uncontrolled earth element combat aura, leaked from every pore. His bones cracked and groaned under the heavy strain. I was drenched in cold sweat, my spiritual power locked onto his body, watching for the worst. Raymond wanted to rush forward, but I shouted him back. For one terrible moment, I seriously thought Jack would actually burst apart. Then he roared, not in pain, but defiance. Decades of frustration and failure poured out in that epic sound. His back straightened, the wild energy slowly, painfully pulled back inside his body. A clear, stable combat aura began rising from deep within him like a sunrise after an endless night. His eyes snapped open like a lion's. Trust me, seeing that yellow glow wrap his fist, we just witnessed a true warrior reborn. Pure combat energy. Stick with me here. We are about to watch a total zero unlock genuine knight aura. The kind that boosts raw strength through weapons. Raymond screamed with joy. I sighed, basically collapsing from total relief. Jack just stared at his glowing fist, absolutely losing it, laughing and crying together. Broken Blade Jack is back, he choked out, crying like a man reborn. He tried dropping to his knees to thank me, but the second he moved, the side effects hit hard. His face drained of color, the energy turned completely chaotic. Muscles locked up, Crushing exhaustion slammed him flat to the floor. He could barely move. But even lying there, totally pale and drenched in sweat, the guy kept smiling. The pain meant nothing, he said. He was finally a knight. That was everything. I ordered him to rest and stabilize his aura. These brutal side effects meant he needed serious recovery time. Most importantly, keep it secret. Nobody finds out until I fix this broken formula. Eventually, I would report this to my father and brother. Jack's massive contribution would be honored. He gave a weak but firm nod. He would keep this secret hidden forever if needed. Seeing Jack broken but glowing on the floor, plus Raymond buzzing with hype, a huge wave of pure accomplishment completely washed right over me. This origin potion actually worked. It was crude, painful, packed with brutal side effects, but it officially forged a knight. I stared past the crumbling ceiling, looking up toward the cold northern frontier. I could not see. The path to building my own army was finally real. While Jack lay recovering, smiling through the pain like an absolute madman, I knew this origin potion needed major work before mass production. Those side effects were way too harsh, and the whole process wasted too much. I dragged Raymond out to the capital market, hunting for magic plant seeds and fresh inspiration. I aggressively bargained through endless stalls, stuffing bags with fire grass, ice, crystal moss, awakening mint, and literally anything else that looked mildly useful. Decent haul, sure, but absolutely nothing to fix my potion. Watch closely here. Passing a dusty corner stall, Farm Space brand suddenly went totally crazy, pulsing and vibrating like it was absolutely starving. I traced that insane reaction to a dirty silver necklace holding a grimy stone pendant. It honestly looked like a worthless river pebble. I played it super cool, haggled the sleepy vendor down to exactly 8 silver coins, and walked away, clutching what my space was screaming was legendary treasure. Safely back at Oak House, I locked the door and pulled the necklace right inside. The second that stone entered, my brain almost exploded. The brand erupted in blinding light, as an ancient, overwhelming presence filled the air. Vast, impossibly old. That gray crust crumbled, revealing a crystal packed with millions of tiny, flowing runes. A huge wave of pure mental clarity immediately washed right through the space. Information instantly flooded my brain. This was a divine fragment, a literal piece of godhood. How it sat on a junk stall, I will never know. My luck was beyond insane. Before I could even blink, the fragment dissolved into the space. Everything instantly leveled up. Farm time acceleration boosted from double to 5 times normal speed. The animal pen skyrocketed from triple to 10 times speed. Magic density in the air spiked instantly. Soil turned incredibly rich. But the biggest upgrade was the old stone workshop. It reconstructed into a gleaming white temple, the ultimate beginner wisdom workshop. Its core skill? Using faith energy to analyze and optimize potions, magic techniques, and entire cultivation paths. I know what you are thinking. Time to fix that recipe. I fed it all the potion data, the failures, everything. The glowing walls lit up with runes, tearing that messy formula apart and perfectly reassembling it. Seconds later, brand new scroll appeared, glowing faintly gold. A fully optimized origin recipe, complete from level 1 to 3. In theory, taking all 3 tiers could create a full junior knight. Side effects practically gone, stability maxed out. I instantly brewed the new version. After a few trial explosions, I finally crafted a ruby red liquid, clear as honey, smelling exactly like fresh magical herbs and clean earth. No rusty smell, no swampy taste, an absolutely flawless product. I brought it straight to Raymond. He eyed the bottle suspiciously, remembering Jack screaming in agony, but I told him this was it. I had the whole set ready to force him straight into junior knight tier. He glanced at Jack, who gave an encouraging nod, then threw it back and drank. And what do you and I get to witness? Pure success. Instead of screaming, Raymond felt a warm wave spread like a relaxing hot spring. His muscles swelled, combat aura flared to life, and power settled smoothly. 2 minutes later, he stood up and threw an experimental punch, generating a massive whoosh of force. He blinked, totally confused. Wait, that is it? I could literally go train right now. The side effects, just mild soreness, way better than Jack's hours of intense pain. Stick with me here, watching Raymond bounce around testing his epic new strength. I looked at the ruby potion and laughed out loud. The upgraded recipe worked flawlessly. With the complete 3-tier formula, I had the ultimate blueprint to mass-produce actual, legendary knights. Suddenly, the northern frontier felt way closer. 2 new family letters arrived, both delivering the exact same urgent message in totally different styles. We need more miracles. My father's letter actually started super warm. Silver Radiance and the other foals were growing beyond all expectations. Old John, the stable master, actually cried, calling Silver Radiance a future horse king of the North. The family's military horse contracts were secured, and the northern governor sent massive praises. My dad even called the incredible horses magnificent beyond compare. So wild. From a guy whose glare could freeze water, that was practically a sweet love poem. Then came the serious part. Watch closely here. The northern border crumbled fast, with fierce ORC raids happening way more often. A new shaman appeared among the tribes using dark magic. Warhorse losses were climbing incredibly fast. One epic colt could not turn the tide alone. Our family stables were breeding fast, but great stallions were super scarce, and foals just took time to mature. My dad's closing was pure diplomatic, yet completely transparent. He hinted that if I casually stumbled across more special sources, or delivered some other awesome surprises, the whole family would be super grateful to me. He also packed some cool cold-resistant magical plant seeds from the freezing north for my research. Translation: just keep the epic miracles coming, son. Edmund's letter felt warmer, but carried major weight. He started with another thick banknote, 300 gold coins this time. My brother's generosity was genuinely touching, but then he revealed some huge trouble down on the southern front. Our massive success had attracted jealous rivals. Viscount Glenn and Baron Horton were causing major problems, harassing our trade caravans, stirring up the locals, even staging small armed standoffs. Edmund totally suspected a powerful boss backed them. Things were contained for now, but our family desperately lacked a core military squad strong enough to actually intimidate these greedy rivals. His closing completely matched my father's tone. Keep studying, keep getting results, and if more wild breakthroughs like Silver Radiance magically appeared, that would be absolutely wonderful. I sat there with both letters, the 300 gold note and the plant seeds, finally piecing this whole puzzle together. You see it too, right? The North needed soldiers surviving ORC attacks, while the South needed pure muscle to scare off neighbors. Both massive problems pointed straight to one epic solution right under my feet. My space ranch was farming magic cores at an absurd speed. That pile kept growing. The Wisdom Workshop had beautifully optimized my lineage potion into a clean, super effective formula with basically zero side effects. Old Jack proved the original worked. Raymond totally proved the upgraded version worked absolutely beautifully. I held complete recipes for 3 potion tiers, strong enough to push totally ordinary people all the way up to junior knight level. The North didn't need elite warriors. It needed massive numbers of armored fighters who could hold the line against fierce ORC raiders. The South did not need legendary knights. It needed enough loyal, capable soldiers to make greedy neighbors think twice. Mass-produced knights were exactly what both tricky situations demanded, and I was now the only guy in the whole world who could actually make it happen. I stared at my magic core mountain, the completely optimized potion formula, and those urgent letters from my dad and brother begging for miracles. It was finally time to deliver. The exact moment the Academy holiday bell rang, I was packed. Leaving Oak House entirely in Finn's hands, I grabbed old Jack and Raymond, racing straight back to Blackstone City. This time, I definitely wasn't carrying horses. I brought something that would completely reshape our family's destiny. The castle's council room felt incredibly heavy with tense energy when I finally arrived. My father sat totally stone-faced, The newest intelligence reports spread everywhere. Elite ORC raiders completely ambushed a transport convoy, taking down over a dozen war horses and all their guards. The horse shortage was now absolutely critical. Edmund sat nearby, looking just as grim. Those southern neighbors were getting way bolder with their attacks, and our family lacked a military force strong enough to properly shut them down. Right into this crazy storm, I walked in with my crew. Edmund noticed Jack instantly. The guy, who was basically a broken shadow for years, now stood tall, eyes fierce and sharp. Looking 10 years younger, I cut straight to the chase. And that is where we leave it. I promised them the ultimate fix for our weakness. The legendary lineage elixir. Stick with me here, because this crazy brew turns average guys into apprentice knights. 0 talent required. Edmund jumped up, yelling it was impossible. Dad's eyes blazed fiercely while I just pointed right at Jack. Jack stepped up, tightened his fist, and unleashed a glowing yellow aura. Pure undeniable earth element knight energy. Completely real and stable. The room fell dead silent. Sharp as ever, Dad instantly asked about the cost. I gave them the honest truth. First, drinkers get their potential completely locked at apprentice rank forever, unless upgraded. And right now, formula only goes up to the junior knight level. Second, the entire process carries tough risks and temporary side effects. Third, each dose needs a first-tier magic core. Upgrades need better cores. Edmund's initial excitement quickly cooled down entirely, but Dad's eyes absolutely lit up. Locked at apprentice rank? Who even cares? He declared like rolling thunder. Our northern territory did not need rare prodigies taking decades to train. We needed fast, heavily armored soldiers to hold off massive ORC armies. We did not need fancy legendary champions. We needed enough armed fighters to scare off jealous neighbors. Solid numbers and reliability easily overpowered single individual brilliance. He asked about mass production. I said yes. With enough cores, my success rate already easily topped 40%. He slammed his hand on the oak table. Orders flew. Edmund had to secretly pick 100 strong, disciplined, and fiercely loyal young men from our trusted family. Guards. They would get the amazing chance to become real knights for lifetime loyalty. Traitors would face our harsh family laws. Now, pay close attention here. Giving them combat aura without proper breathing techniques was just like wielding a blunt sword. So I asked to teach them our prized Blackstone Rampart technique. This legendary defensive earth method would maximize their heavy infantry strength perfectly. Dad's eyes instantly narrowed. That specific technique was a core secret, kept only for direct heirs or heroes showing truly incredible merit. He mentioned its weight, but I stood firm. These men could never grow past their locked rank. So, handing them our best defensive skill would transform basic capped apprentice knights into an absolutely terrifying, unstoppable military force. 100 heavily armored troops sharing connected combat auras in tight formation. An unstoppable wall making mid-tier knights hesitate. They would not just be regular soldiers. They would be our living fortress. A rampart. Dad slowly repeated the word. A rampart. I saw his vision. 100 armored warriors defending Blackstone City like a mountain, breaking massive ORC charges and terrifying southern rivals alike. He approved absolutely everything. The technique, potion program, and family resources. Edmund would support me entirely. Before leaving, Dad gave me a long look. His entirely new expression showed immense pride, pure wonder, and something truly profound. He quietly whispered that every new surprise I brought was bigger than the last. He hoped this knight course became our true foundation. Leaving, I felt the heavy weight of what I just set into motion. Can you even believe this? 100 new knights. We are just getting started. Back in the capital, flipped my basement into an epic potion factory. Dad gave me unlimited access to family resources, plus 2,000 shiny gold coins for materials. It only cost 500. I proudly pocketed the difference without any guilt. I became a human assembly line, grinding cores, mixing ingredients, controlling temperatures, and bottling potions. Day after day, I survived on dry bread, sleep, and that black cauldron. With the workshop's optimized recipe success rate beautifully held above 60%. I still dealt with occasional explosions and nasty toxic fumes. But one by one, beautiful ruby red bottles of heritage potion filled the wooden crate. 100 bottles for our family's epic new night course. Order complete. Checking my space wrench during breaks gave me an absolutely massive surprise. Those original 5 steel tooth rabbits I bought a few months ago, they had miraculously evolved. Thanks to 10 times speed, acceleration, and the rich magical atmosphere from the divine fragment. They outgrew every single younger generation. Their teeth gleamed like metal, chewing ironwood fences like crackers. Their energy signatures read as powerful third-tier magical beasts at peak elementary level. Normal steel tooth rabbits max out at first tier. Reaching second tier is widely considered a total freak mutation. Mine hit third. The space was not just accelerating normal growth. So what do we take from this? Long exposure pushed creatures past species limits. Third-tier cores are far more powerful and pure than first-tier ones. Stick with me's stash of top-tier potion ingredients is absolutely secured now. Goodbye, overpriced market cores. His space rabbits are literally spitting them out for totally zero cost. Family orders done. He chases personal goals. He tasks Raymond to pull 3 rock-solid brawlers right from the family's own trade guard crew. Old 6, a silent guy with lethal knife skills, plus haunts the bull, physically strong enough to lift horses. Finally, Kale, Hawkeye, sharp-eyed hunter descendant. They all have families in Blackstone City, built-in loyalty insurance. 3 potions trigger 3 epic basement transformations. Cue the familiar grunts, bursting combat auras, and that quick energy drain. Boom! 3 fresh apprentice knights. Counting Jack and Raymond, our guy now has 5 personal warriors sworn totally to him. Kneeling in that tiny basement, their eyes absolutely blaze with pure gratitude and loyalty. He makes Jack captain and Raymond deputy, instantly giving them their new standing orders. Rest up, master the Blackstone Rampart breathing technique, and prep for future high-tier potion upgrades. Family duty complete and private squad formed. Our main character pivots straight into power scaling. Flashing instructor Goodwin's bronze badge, he sneaks into the restricted 3rd floor, aggressively scanning every advanced text he finds. Alchemy charts, beast lineage breakdowns, energy breakthrough theories, and soul contracts. He doesn't understand half of this stuff, but he hoards it all anyway. The Wisdom Workshop will process everything eventually anyway. He also hits up the capital and black market auctions, hunting for high-grade magical beast cubs, fire foxes, snow ferrets, windrunner foals. Anything with real potential enters his awesome space ranch. He even gambles 100 gold coins on some mysterious petrified lizard egg from the Misty Mountains at an underground black market auction. Pure gamble, but with his space's insane power, long shots are completely worth it. Staring at this growing zoo of fuzzy, scaly, and feathery babies in his space pens, he smiles like a super proud zookeeper. They'll all eventually produce magic cores, fueling his potion empire and rising army. Meanwhile, academy life seems totally normal on the surface. Just regular classes, quiet meditation, and lab work. But secretly, everything is on hyperspeed. Beasts evolve, knowledge stack, knights training, and his big northern plans getting sharper by the day. Now pay attention here. He sneaks into his farm space for inspection, and the sight is genuinely mind-blowing. Everything is thriving past his wildest dreams. Those 10 acres of farmland, now boosted to 5 times normal speed, are completely exploding with life. The eastern 5 acres form his core production zone, the literal backbone of his potion empire. Powerful hemostasis grass grows like a dense forest, its sharp leaves reeking of incredibly potent medicine. Silver pattern concentration flowers sway gently, radiating calming energy that is perfect for stabilizing wild magic core reactions. Velvet green moonlight grass carpets the ground, sprouting these gorgeous, tiny silver sparkles at nightfall. Plus, Those trusty space radishes stand huge and white in neat rows, totally essential for neutralizing potion explosions and feeding his crew. The western 5 acres become his dedicated experimental garden. Northern thorn vines from his father's seed package are stubbornly spreading their sharp, thorny branches. Black market fire tinder grass glows faintly red. Meanwhile, awesome ice crystal moss spreads right across cold stone slabs, trailing magical wisps of frost. Awakening mint has gone absolutely wild, growing thick, juicy leaves that could revive practically anybody. I know what you're thinking. He's totally hoarding. And yeah, he plants everything for his future self. Meanwhile, the ranch area under 10 times acceleration is becoming an absolute chaotic zoo. 2 massive pens house his steel-toothed rabbit empire. Those 5 original rabbits, grown into bull-sized monsters. Their metallic teeth chew through reinforced fencing like butter, confirming them as peak third-tier magical beasts. These guys are his premium core producers. Dozens of younger rabbits fill the next pen, producing steady first and second-tier cores. But honestly, their waste is just as valuable. He processes their magic-enriched droppings into this superb fertilizer, making literally every single plant in the space grow insanely fast and strong. Rabbits eat grass, drop magic cores, and fertilize his fields. An absolutely perfect closed loop. 6 earth shell lizards just lounge in their sandpit, armor-like shells hardening daily. He's already eyeing those tough shells for crafting future epic knight armor. The biggest female lizard sits reluctantly on his 100 gold coin gamble, that petrified lizard egg from the shady black market auction. He literally bribes her with premium rabbit meat to keep warming it up. Every single day he scans that egg. Hopefully, over in the southeast pen, 3 space-optimized warhorses chill alongside 2 young windrunner foals he bought recently. Those windrunners already show insane speed, trailing wind energy from their hooves. His simple plan is letting them grow and eventually breed. You and I just witnessed an empire beginning. Stick with me here. Combining warhorse endurance and windrunner speed creates absolutely insane offspring. The southern pens held my newest catches. 6 firefox cubs curled into 1 glowing red furball, playfully batting at sparks and randomly sneezing out the cutest little bursts of pure fire. Right next door, 2 tiny snow ferrets zipped around at lightning speed, leaving these cool little trails of frost wherever they dashed. 4 cages stayed empty, but I had big plans. Fire lions, ice wolves, wind eagles, whatever rare beast I could grab. Each creature guaranteed future magic cores, rare potions, and serious power. Standing right inside my very own kingdom, surrounded by booming magical crops, breeding beasts, and that sweet hum of accelerated time, I finally felt total control. Every single resource looped together in absolute perfection. Rabbits fertilized the dirt, dirt sprouted the plants, plants brewed the potions, and potions forged my army. Then, glancing past the lizard pen, I sensed something wild from that gray stone egg. A super faint pulse, barely noticeable like a tiny heartbeat. I instantly froze. Was it finally hatching? 2 whole years had flown by since hitting the academy, and my entire world had leveled up completely. Oak House wasn't just some trashy hideout anymore. Raymond's squad upgraded it with solid stone, turning the courtyard into a literal mini-fortress. Leah's magical veggies towered over everyone, while Bard and Ella's earth walls were insanely thick, like actual castle ramparts. I pushed myself straight to peak mid-level mage, inches from high level. Opening my palm, a massive fireball sparked instantly, burning so crazy hot it literally warped the air around it. Way better than that pathetic little spark 2 years ago. My farming mages all broke through to junior mage tier. 10 earth and nature apprentices that everyone else completely wrote off as total garbage. Now easily boosting plant growth, scanning soil, buffing structures, and throwing out basic heals. Awful in combat, but absolute gods at frontier development. Plus, check out my Knight Core. Raymond and Old Jack just hit peak junior knight status easily. Behind them, 30 junior knight warriors stood, totally ready. fully mastering the legendary Blackstone Rampart technique. Linking their combat auras together, they summoned this massive golden earth wall that just pumped out an absolutely terrifying heavy pressure. They all knew I gave them this crazy power, in their loyalty 100% absolute. I finally had everything I needed. Builders and farmers for magic support, heavy hitters for frontline combat, an infinite space farm, and endless potions to print new knights. But then, massive news struck like absolute lightning out of nowhere. Now, pay attention here. The king just dropped a northern frontier decree that stunned the entire capital. Anyone, noble or commoner, could grab territory in the northern wastes, build whole towns, farm the wild, and battle rogue ORCs. You score war points for every single enemy defeated, 1 point per warrior, 10 for knights, 100 for commanders, and double for those nasty shamans and chieftains. Trade points for royal titles, combat potions, breathing techniques, magic weapons, heavy armor, fresh land, you name it. The capital went crazy. Ambitious nobles, desperate knights, and greedy commoners immediately started plotting. I know what you're thinking. Fear? Not even close. Pure excitement. This royal decree was literally custom made just for me. What was I missing? Territory, real status, and a legal excuse to build an empire. And what did this decree promise? Free land, titles, and total legal rights to crush ORCs for massive loot. My advantage? An infinite space farm, printing supplies, enhancement potions, creating knights, infrastructure mages, an elite combat corps, plus a whole zoo of magical beasts scaling up as insane future weapons. I smashed my fist into the table. The northern Blackstone wasteland is our target. I assembled the crew, and Raymond and Jack were in. They'd been waiting for action. Leah's face totally lit up, guaranteeing her squad would dominate all the farming and construction. Finn nervously adjusted his glasses. About ORC threats, but I stopped him cold. Danger equals opportunity. ORCs weren't enemies. They were walking loot drops. The master plan was obvious. Move quick. Lock down a base. Build a town. Farm up. Destroy ORCs. Stack infinite points. And claim lordship. Step 1. Head back to Blackstone City and hype up my dad and brother for funding, manpower, and massive supplies. Standing out in the Oak House courtyard, backed by loyal knights and hyped up mages, with my space farm humming powerfully in my mind, I finally let that legendary title echo through my head for the very first time. Lord Dwyan Wilson of the Northern Territory. Yeah, that sounds absolutely epic to me. So where does this leave you and me? Studying this northern map, my finger locks onto Black Reef Coast. And trust me, our wild journey is only just getting started. Stick with me. Someone drew a skull right here. Other nobles called this land trash. Dark shores smashing ships. Salty ruined ground barely growing weeds. And honestly, nothing worth fighting for. Absolutely perfect. Everyone else saw wasteland. I saw a totally undisputed golden opportunity. My space farm turns ordinary dirt into absolute paradise. Lee and her mages speed grow crops in a third the usual time. Salty ground means nothing when my epic magical fertilizer makes pure rocks sprout fresh veggies. Being super remote completely dodges those nasty ORC invasions. The wavy coast has natural tiny harbors, perfectly ready for future docks linking our massive southern trade network. Super cheap, perfectly safe, totally hidden, and bursting with potential. But I really needed my dad and brother to fund this. No more vague stories. Time for a real pitch with solid proof. From my space, I pulled rich black dirt radiating pure life energy into a fancy crystal vial. I also plucked a massive, shiny space-grown radish with roots still dangling. Next, I grabbed sad, salty dirt from a wasteland outside the city limits and shoved a fully withered weed inside. Now watch closely. The contrast here is wild. A fading weed facing off against a massive, shredded bodybuilding radish. For the cash angle, I whipped up bottles of my absolute best healing and energy potions using epic space ingredients. These were not rookie tier anymore. They reached top professional quality. Total proof my new base could supply premium potions for northern guards and super wealthy lords. I drafted an epic proposal letter. First, I pitched Black Reef perfectly. Remote, totally safe from heavy ORC attacks. Amazing harbor potential, zero rival competition, and dirt cheap to grab. Then I dropped my ultimate trump cards. Epic, magical fertilizer, turning terrible, barren dirt into lush farmland. Super fast crops maturing in half the time. Awesome nature mages for backup. And a coastal spot. Perfect for sneaky trade links. I kept resource demands reasonable so they would not panic. 50 guards, 30 expert craftsmen, 500 farm families, food for 3 months, seeds, weapons, handy tools, a few trade ships, and 500 gold. I stress this was merely a one-time startup fee. Once running, the whole base becomes totally self-sustaining and eventually rich for everyone. Finally, I casually tossed out my absolute biggest shiny bait. I casually mentioned cracking the awesome Silver Radiance bloodline, heavily hinting I could easily breed way better super horses down the line. The crazy space ranch already had Silver Radiance babies growing at super speed. I promised Dad and Bro that backing this plan meant an endless pipeline of literal miracles. Then I packed everything up super carefully. The letter, soil, that crazy radish versus weed demo, and the epic potions. I handed it all to old Jack for a direct delivery to Blackstone City. I know what you are thinking. Pure evil genius, right? I just grinned at that skull map. Black Reef Coast, Mighty Wilson territory. Sounded absolutely perfect to me. Jack delivered the stash straight to Blackstone Castle. Later, he told me the big presentation went flawlessly. Maybe even way better than planned. Dad and Edmund sat in the massive hall while Jack unpacked every single piece. First, those shiny vials of space dirt. Once opened, even my totally freezing cold dad twitched from the crazy life energy spilling out. Edmund took a huge breath, instantly feeling refreshed. Then came the 2 pots. One showed a crusty dried weed and real, salty white Black Reef Coast dirt. The other had that exact same trash dirt, but holding a massive, glowing radish with huge leaves and roots, literally cracking the pot open. The difference was brutal. Edmund leaped up to inspect it, totally mind blown by the sight. Jack confirmed he dug that salty dirt himself, and watched me grow that beastly radish using my epic fertilizer. Zero tricks or illusions here. Next up, the potions. My top-tier healing and energy drinks sparkled inside their bottles. To prove this legendary healing paste actually worked, Jack suddenly pulled a blade and deeply scratched his own arm right inside the council room. Edmund flinched hard, while Dad just narrowed his eyes. Jack calmly dabbed some paste on the injury. It sealed instantly. Within 10 breaths, the terrible cut was completely closed up. Edmund gasped, realizing this epic medicine could easily double any warrior's survival rate out there. His merchant brain calculated massive profits. Finally, they read my proposal. So what do we take from this? Genius pitches win. Dad stayed totally frozen until the core plan hit. Then, pure magic. Alright, stick with me here. Magic fertilizer fixing barren dirt, super fast harvests, plus a potion and epic monster farming base. His face went from totally doubtful to pure shock. Then, my ultimate trap. Black Reef was absolutely the best spot to keep upgrading his prized horse's legendary genetic makeup. Boom, direct hit. Silver Radiance was his absolute favorite pride and joy. A super secret hideout built literally just to breed those unstoppable, next level, epic super horses. He absolutely could not say no. Total silence dropped. Dad just froze right there for what honestly felt like a whole lifetime. Edmund was calculating everything. Potion, cash, magic cores, crazy new trade routes. Then my dad finally spoke up. Total approval. 50 elite guards, 30 master builders, 500 farming households, plus 3 ships packed with 3 months of food, seeds, and tools. All premium quality stuff. 500 gold from Edmund. And the absolute biggest shock? He tossed in 3 of our top-tier merchant warships, the Bedrock, the Black Eagle, and the famous South Wind, fully manned with veteran crews, completely under my control. Now pay attention. These ships cross oceans and blast pirates. Edmund's jaw literally hit the table. Even he was stunned. Dad's last message through Jack? Totally classic him. 50% praise and 50% absolute final warning. He literally called Black Reef the family's absolute, sharpest northern stake. A massive future granary, gold vault, and strategic blade. Total family support for me. The massive chance was mine, but if I blew it. Jack reminded me that losing lands and wasting resources meant facing brutal imperial laws without any mercy. He wouldn't send a single soul to save me. Sea monsters could just eat me. Old Jack raced back to Oak House acting completely crazed. His horse's hooves spraying thick mud everywhere. He practically tumbled out of his saddle, sprinting inside and screaming, "It's done. We got all of it." I was crouching outside, wrestling tiny baby steel-tooth rabbits trying to chew apart my boots. Hearing his shout, my heart basically skipped a beat. He ripped his jacket open, revealing the self-made demo wound, perfectly healed thanks to my magic healing cream. Then he rattled off the epic haul. 50 elite guards, 30 master craftsmen, 500 farming families, gigantic piles of premium food, fancy seeds, and heavy tools, 500 gold coins, and where his voice totally broke, 3 fully armed merchant warships, Bedrock, Black Eagle, and South Wind, the absolute best vessels, veteran crews included, answering only to me. You feel that hype too, right? I leaped right off the ground like a startled cat and howled so insanely loud, every bird scattered. 3 massive ocean-ready ships carrying heavy crossbow cannons. I furiously shook Jack's shoulders until he swore it was real twice. Then, I finally forced myself to breathe. Timeline, just 15 short days. Everything would be perfectly assembled at Blackstone City Port, completely ready for my arriving fleet. 0 time left to waste. I leaped onto a huge wooden stump outside and violently bellowed for everybody to assemble. Raymond crashed out first, swinging his giant greatsword. Leah stumbled out half asleep with bird's nest hair. Bart emerged, covered in thick stone dust. Ella had magical powder everywhere. Then came those sleepy apprentice mages, fiercely rubbing their eyes, quickly followed by 30 loyal knights forming ranks outside. I dropped the bombshell. Full family backing for our northern frontier run. Target destination, Black Reef Coast. I painted the epic vision. Sure, it was literally a barren salt flat today, but we had that magic fertilizer, crazy nature mages for rapid growth, earth mages building instant bases, and hardcore knights smashing threats. We would literally transform that wasteland into a massive granary, potion workshop, and epic beast ranch. Everyone cheered. Knights violently pounded their chest armor. Leah and the nature mages blushed wildly. Bart cracked his knuckles, fully ready to build. Then I snapped everyone into overdrive. Pack everything. Strip Oak House completely bare. Every single useful item was coming. First, I raided my magical inventory. Literal mountains of weird space radishes were super carefully loaded into lined baskets. Premium optimized seeds for everything went into tightly labeled waterproof bags. Living magic plant seedlings got extremely carefully dug up with their native soil, sitting safely inside Leah's very protective hands. My entire alchemy lab got safely boxed up. Those legendary wisdom scrolls were triple wrapped inside oilcloth and stuffed straight against my chest. Literal pure gold. Right mid-packing, Leah screamed. A tiny rogue rabbit cub somehow escaped and happily started munching my ultra-precious healing grass seedlings. I grabbed a heavy broom, wildly chasing it everywhere until Raymond finally snatched its scruff. I immediately ordered every single rabbit locked tightly away. Those guys were coming for absolute emergency food and breeding. Then I assigned roles. So what do you and I make of this? Jack's 30 knights are our muscle, fighting ORCs and chopping trees. Stick with me here. Leah and her nature mages completely secured our food, growing magic fertilizer crops insanely fast. Bard, Ella, and the Earth apprentices handled the heavy lifting. Buildings, roads, walls, literally everything our new settlement needed to physically exist. Finn stayed behind at the academy. I told him straight up forcing a bookworm onto a rough frontier construction site was a complete waste of talent. He'd serve way better as our capital tech advisor, researching essential upgrades and joining us once we actually established our base. Pure relief completely flooded his face, promising to study anything that would actually help our crazy mission. Looking at my wildly chaotic, super excited, mismatched crew, knights hauling crates, mages wrapping seedlings, caged rabbits squealing. Everyone was buzzing with sheer purpose as I stood on a stump, making it official. 2 weeks later, Blackstone City Port. We sail north to Black Reef Coast. The port quickly turned into absolute, organized chaos. 3 massive ships proudly flying the Wilson family's signature Black Eagle banner. The Bedrock, Black Eagle, and South Wind sat heavy like armored beasts, totally maxed out on cargo and fiercely straining against their mooring ropes. The docks were an absolute madhouse. You and I would be overwhelmed seeing 500 farming families hauling everything: bedrolls, dented iron pots, lucky dirt, guys carrying their entire life savings on their backs, women tightly clutched babies and heavy packs, their faces showing equal parts genuine fear and massive hope. Kids either cried out loud or stared wide-eyed at those insanely huge wooden ships. 50 family guards worked themselves totally hoarse trying to maintain order. They frantically herded confused farmers away from wandering livestock and pointed lost families toward the right gangplanks. One woman tripped over a rope, spilling her basket. Clothes and a little handmade ragdoll tumbled straight into the dirty mud. A bearded guard yelled at her to hurry, then quietly bent down and repacked it for her. Our 30 craftsmen, way more efficient. Old Grim the carpenter hauled his precious chisels and saws aboard, loudly barking at his helpers to stay gentle. Blacksmith apprentices sweated heavily under a massive portable anvil and thick bellows. Stonemasons carried their measuring tools with rock-steady hands, already dreaming about what kind of stone the new land offered. My 30 knights stood in sharp contrast to the wild chaos. Silent, heavily armored, weapons ready. They formed a strict protective corridor on the Bedrock's deck. Jack and Raymond held the front, eyes scanning the crowd with predatory calm. Leah crept up the gangplank, gripping her box of hemostas's grass seedlings so hard her knuckles went dead white. Bard gawked at the towering masts, simply muttering that ship rigging looked way harder than moving heavy rocks. My little band of apprentice mages looked completely, hilariously out of place standing between weathered sailors and heavily ironclad knights. Below deck, the crews worked frantically. Grain sacks hit the driest holds 3 months of food for over 1,000 people. Special seed bags were securely sealed under heavy oilcloth in dedicated compartments. Farm tools, carpentry equipment, and blacksmith gear were quickly sorted and firmly lashed down tight. I know what you're thinking, but yes, my precious space radishes got locked right next to the captain's cabin, complete with 2 heavy knights standing guard. Those guys watched those simple crates harder than a massive bank vault, building timber, heavy stone blocks, and prefab lumber for our temporary shelters were stacked and tied across the Black Eagle's decks. The Southwind's livestock area, absolute, pure pandemonium. Pigs screaming, sheep bleating, and panicked chickens exploding from their bamboo cages in wild clouds of feathers and deafening noise. My magical beast cubs sat surprisingly quiet in reinforced cages on the bedrock, though one steel-toothed rabbit fiercely gnawed its iron bars, almost making a stressed guard draw his actual sword. The whole port intensely smelled like animal feed, waste, sharp sea salt, and heavy human sweat. I stood right at the bow of the bedrock in a fitted travel outfit and a windproof short cloak, my hair wildly whipping in the ocean breeze. Edmund bravely fought through the thick, chaotic crowd right to the ship's side. He looked up at me with this ridiculously complicated expression: total pride, deep worry, and the obvious pain of watching a fortune sail away. His final farewell, pure Edmund. He reminded me these ships were just borrowed, told me to return them, avoid sea monsters, and actually make something of myself out there. I just grinned widely and shouted back that I'd definitely bring him some awesome black reef souvenirs. He shook his head with that totally familiar mix of slight annoyance and real brotherly affection, then vanished into the massive crowd. Loading was finally finished. Commands rapidly rang out one after another. Raise anchor, cast off, unfurl those sails. Massive heavy iron anchors violently ground free from the thick harbor mud. Thick ropes snaked back aboard. Massive brown canvas sails climbed the tall masts, aggressively snapping open like eagle wings and catching the wind with the super deep, powerful boom. The huge ships loudly groaned, shifted, and finally began to move. Slowly at first, then building huge momentum. The three vessels pulled away from the dock in a strict line. The familiar port sounds quickly faded away. Blackstone City's outline shrank behind us. Naturally, everyone on deck turned to take one last look back. Farmers, guards, knights, and mages watching. Trust me, you and I are in for one wild journey. Let's dive in. Kids stopped crying, facing the endless ocean. Wives squeezed their partners' hands. I stood boldly at the bedrock's front. Ahead waited freezing autumn winds, dangerous reef-filled waters, and a mysterious, empty coastline, hidden in gray mist. Either my exile or my kingdom. The ship's horn blasted deep, powerful, echoing far across the water. I threw my arm forward and shouted cheerfully over the roaring waves, reaching all the ships behind us. Destination: Black Reef Coast. Set sail. The sails swelled like tightly drawn bows. The bedrock and our fleet carved through the deep blue sea. We left white wakes, shooting like arrows toward the cold, mysterious, and endlessly promising northern lands. We carried chickens, livestock, grain, steel, huge radishes, and 1,000 anxious but truly hopeful human hearts. The Northern Province Governor's office sat right in Ice Rock City, looking like frozen granite blocks held together by pure frost magic. Stone gargoyles guarded the entrance, staring at visitors like they were sizing up a tasty snack. The outside plaza was pure madness. Every kind of frontier hopeful showed up. Broke nobles in dented family armor bragged about their grandfathers' epic battles. Loud mercenary captains actively recruited tough guys. Meanwhile, pale beginner mages dreamed of free land and huge magic towers. Crowds of common families nervously clutched their belongings, their eyes showing a wild mix of land hunger and deep ORC terror. The line for development charters snaked across the plaza like a very confused caterpillar. Old Jack flashed our Wilson family crest to a guard captain, slipping him something heavy. The guard yelled for the crowd to step aside for urgent, noble business. People grumbled and complained about another rich kid cutting the line, but they actually moved. Watch closely. Raymond's cold glare silenced the loudest complainer. A huge mercenary calling me pretty boy. Inside, the dark building smelled like ancient paperwork. The charter office was a cramped side room featuring a scratched oak desk. Behind it sat the most memorable bureaucrat I had ever seen. A guy in his 50s, with hair like a messy field, a dried orange peel face, cloudy eyes, and a spectacular red nose with sweat dangling from the tip. His faded clerk robe was heavily frayed. He scratched documents using a nearly bald quill pen, moving just like a rusty machine. When my turn came, confidently handed over our Wilson family documents. He squinted at the name, mumbled about my father, the Viscount, and slowly, painfully slowly, began filling out the large registration ledger. Development area? He croaked. Northern Province. Black Reef Coast. He stopped writing, stared right at me, then burst into wheezing, spit-spraying laughter. Black Reef Coast. Another one. Another young noble who just wants to vanish. He shook his greasy head, scrawling my destination in terrible handwriting. Then he cheerfully ranted about how Black Reef was nothing but dark rocks and cold salt water, where crops failed, harsh winds blew you off cliffs, winter froze things that shouldn't freeze, and sea beasts dragged people into the deep ocean. He had worked this desk for 30 years, and fewer than 1 in 10 who took charters for that coast ever came back alive. You hear that too, right? The room filled with snickers. He is insane. Bet he won't last 3 months. I give him 1 winter. I could feel Raymond coiled like a tight spring, and Jack's fury burning behind me, but I kept my face totally blank, letting the old man talk himself breathless. When he finally paused to gasp for air, I just calmly replied, "Thank you for the warning. My decision stands. Please issue the charter." His mocking grin froze, then quickly twisted into irritation. He loudly snorted, yanking a rough, yellowed scroll from under the desk, found his stamp, a heavy metal seal carved with a roaring bear. He slammed it into ink and smashed it onto the parchment so hard I thought it would tear through. "Doing Wilson, development territory, Black Reef Coast." He practically spat the words, then flung the still wet scroll at me like absolute garbage. "Your doom warrant. Don't lose it. Sea beasts won't care." I caught it. The old parchment felt as rough as sandpaper. The crimson bear head stamp still glistened with fresh ink. It smelled exactly like cheap dye and cheaper bureaucracy. I didn't look at the clerk or acknowledge the snickering crowd. I rolled the scroll carefully, tucked it into my inner pocket, and patted it gently. Raymond and Jack flanked me like total war gods as we walked out. Their intense stares swept the room, and the whispers vanished instantly. Outside, in the sunlight, I stood on the steps, watching the plaza full of hopeful settlers fighting over slightly better dirt patches. I touched the cold, rough scroll against my chest. "A doom warrant?" I murmured, quiet enough for only my 2 guards to hear. "For them, maybe. For me?" I looked north toward that barren coast. Nobody wanted. "Trust me on this. You and I both know that is absolute prime real estate." Days after leaving the provincial capital, the temperature completely dropped off a cliff. Even bundled up in my heavy cloak, the freezing chill pierced right through me. Suddenly, the lookout up in the crow's nest shrieked, pointing straight ahead. "You and I are about to see why every veteran sailor suddenly turned completely pale." 2 colossal, dark cliffs stood facing each other like the scary gates to the underworld itself. The sky shifted to a nasty, heavy gray, pushing down on the ocean like a murky ceiling. The intense dread was almost physical from afar. But backing down? Not an option today. The second we entered that strait, everything instantly flipped. The peaceful waters completely disappeared, replaced by a bubbling, dark green nightmare of a sea. The wind didn't just howl. It shrieked like thousands of wailing voices all at once. I could hardly keep my balance. Those heavy clouds sank incredibly low, almost brushing our main mast as silent, pale lightning slithered through the dark. Then the waves hit. Well, they were actually moving. Mountains of dark water crashing everywhere. The first wave slammed the bedrock side like a battering ram. The entire ship groaned loudly, acting like it would split apart. Every loose barrel, rope, and bucket went flying across deck. I hugged the main mast tightly, hanging on for dear life like a rag doll trapped inside a washing machine. Down below, the poor farmers were completely miserable. That crazy rocking had everyone tossing their cookies. The awful mess mixed with bilge water, creating a stench bad enough to make anyone gag. The Black Eagle and South Wind barely peeked through the waves, bouncing like tiny leaves about to be swallowed whole. Captain Barton yelled himself entirely hoarse, dodging crazy whirlpools and rogue currents. Every single hit felt like doom itself scraping our hull. Wood groaned, ropes stretched to their limit. Then, the real disaster struck us. Watch closely now, because a monster wave, bigger and wilder than before, just slammed right into the South Wind's back. Heavy seawater instantly swallowed half the rear deck. Then came that terrible, sharp cracking sound that completely stopped my heart. That reinforced oak cargo door, thick as an arm and wrapped in iron. Its heavy hinges got ripped completely off by the impact. The huge door flew wide open, letting the ocean rush in like wild beasts. Right inside, dangerously close to that smashed door, sat over a dozen carefully wrapped crates holding my totally amazing space grain seeds. These totally weren't your normal seeds. They packed enhanced life energy from my space farm made to grow quickly anywhere. They were my absolute guarantee for feeding 1,000 folks during our critical early months at Black Reef. Brutal floodwaters crashed heavily into those crates. Thick ropes snapped, wood splintered. Plump golden seeds, glowing softly with pure life force, spilled out just like sand and washed away into the raging, unforgiving ocean. A literal golden stream of hope emptying into dark chaos. Our precious seeds. An old guard farmer collapsed against the railing, reaching out hopelessly toward the water, as sad tears completely mixed with the heavy rain on his wrinkled, weathered face. Down below, the farming families heard the tragic news, their emotional wailing piercing right through the storm's roar. I know you feel that heavy grief, too. Standing on the bedrock's wild bow, we could only watch our bright future completely wash away into the churning, dark waves. The south wind's hold sat wide open, our magical golden grain vanishing forever as desperate cries echoed around us. I angrily punched the freezing mast, splitting my knuckles from the sheer force. But the wild storm obviously didn't care about my plans. The north was clearly teaching me a harsh lesson early. Out here, nature's powerful slap easily overpowers even your biggest, most confident ambitions. Eventually, the storm loosened its crazy grip. The shrieking wind finally quieted down. Those giant waves shrank to just scary ones. Soft light peeked through the gray clouds as our 3 damaged ships limped forward like poor, beaten animals. The bedrock had a completely smashed railing. The Black Eagle's sail was totally shredded. And the south wind still rocked that huge hole where my precious, glowing seeds got washed away into the sea. Soaked and pale, I leaned against the mast, stomach still doing flips, while cursing our bad luck, when the lookout's loud warning horn pierced the air. Fast, loud, and panicked. Pirates! On 3 sides. We're surrounded. I immediately rushed over. From behind the rocks, 2 fast little ships glided out like creepy ghosts. They had dark, rotting hulls, each flying a scary black flag with a bright red sword. A 3rd ship suddenly popped out from behind. Those sneaks were hiding in the reef, just waiting to ambush tired, storm-battered prey like us. Just our absolute worst luck. We survive a monster storm only to get ambushed right now. Captain Barton loudly roared for battle stations. Totally exhausted, sailors quickly grabbed harpoons. Dizzy, seasick guards clumsily grabbed weapons with shaking hands. The poor farmers hid away below, but my brave knights absolutely didn't even flinch. Raymond's epic voice thundered across the deck. Knights, battle formation. Get ready for this epic moment. 30 knights formed a tight circle behind Jack, moving perfectly together. Then they dropped the ultimate command, Blackstone Rampart. A seriously deep hum vibrated right through us. Let's dive right in. 30 knights unleashed Yellow Earth combat aura simultaneously, forming one massive golden shield that completely locked down the ship's entire central deck area. The rampart formation worked perfectly. Pirate ships slammed right against us, throwing grappling hooks. Screaming raiders poured over the rails, waving rusted weapons, aggressively howling for treasure and total victory. Their leader jumped first, a 7-foot bald giant rocking one eye and a huge double-bladed axe. He charged the knight formation while laughing wildly. Raymond calmly stepped outside the shield. He gripped his heavy steel greatsword tightly, channeled his entire combat aura straight into the massive blade, and unleashed one single devastating overhead strike with immense power. The heavy clash was deafening. Sparks exploded as the pirate leader's axe went totally flying. The giant got launched backward like a literal ragdoll, crashing right through 3 of his own men, completely knocked out before he even finished rolling away. One single strike ended the leader. The raiders completely froze in shock. Pure fear replaced their aggression as they stared at Raymond standing before that glowing barrier. Jack quickly seized this perfect moment. His spear instantly blasted through a stunned pirate. Now watch closely. The knight surged forward, striking raiders down in a disciplined storm of steel. But then, everything got worse. A shrill, terrifying shriek suddenly pierced the battle from the largest pirate ship's mast. I spun around fast and my entire body went ice cold. Perched up high was a small skeletal figure wrapped in a filthy, feathered robe, rocking a creepy crown made of black feathers and animal skulls. His face was painted white and green, with toxic green light intensely burning in his eyes. He held a bone staff topped with a cloudy gem. An ORC shaman on a pirate ship. The North's absolute worst nightmare had just arrived early. His lips moved quickly, chanting something foul. The green gem blazed, shooting 3 thin beams of sickly light, radiating pure ruin straight at my knights. I did not even hesitate. My blazing fire magic ignited instantly. I formed a dense fist-sized fireball between both palms and launched it right at those incoming beams. 2 of the poison rays instantly collided with my fiery blast in a muffled explosion. There was no dramatic blast, just a sick hissing sound as bright flame and poison consumed each other, erupting into foul, dark, toxic fog that completely reeked of rotting sulfur. But that third beam got right through. It struck the deck near our shield, and scattered toxic mist hit several totally unprotected guards. Their screaming was absolutely terrible. Where vapor touched bare skin, flesh just blackened, blistered, and completely rotted within seconds. Guards quickly collapsed in pure agony. The wooden deck where that beam hit turned pitch black and crumbled like ash. "Leah, move now," I yelled while charging another fireball. Leah went pale, but stayed strong. She ordered her apprentices to quickly grab the emergency healing salves. "You're probably thinking it is over, right?" Well, they scrambled to the fallen guards, feeding them my premium healing paste, smearing it super thick across every single painful, corroding wound. It actually worked. The massive pain faded, and the spreading rot completely stopped. Darkened skin finally stabilized as the powerful salve's life energy formed an invisible healing barrier against the poison. The guards were not fully healed, but they were definitely surviving. Everyone watching this, knights, sailors, and terrified farmers peeking from below, felt massive new hope. My special medicine was real. Raymond loudly roared for counterattack. The knights felt their morale explode, charging out of formation to crush the remaining pirates with absolute savage efficiency. Swords wildly flashed, spears thrust forward, and pirate screams replaced their war cries. Up high, the shaman watched his poison get completely neutralized and his pirate crew utterly defeated. His glowing green eyes locked right onto me with venomous rage while I prepared a second fireball. I could seriously feel him completely memorizing my face. Then he hissed an unknown spell, angrily slammed his staff down, and instantly vanished in dark green smoke. Just some black feathers drifted down from the empty crow's nest. Suddenly, creepy bone whistle loudly shrieked from that pirate flagship. Surviving raiders quickly abandoned their fallen and wounded, leaping back to ships, cutting grappling lines, and wildly fleeing in disorder. It was finally over. Our deck was just a massive mess of seawater and debris. Those poisoned guards stabilized thanks to my salve, though still hurting. Meanwhile, sailors began dragging the defeated pirates over to the ship rails. I just stood there watching the pirates disappear, then nervously glanced up toward that empty mast where the creepy shaman had been. Storm damage, pirate ambushes, and an escaped ORC shaman who literally memorized my face. I sighed, slowly touching the development charter hidden in my jacket. That red bear stamp almost seemed to laugh at me. The Black Reef Coast welcome party was absolutely wild and memorable. So what do we take from this? After surviving all that, our 3 battered ships finally escaped Whaling Strait, leaving everyone completely exhausted. Massive wreckage covered the decks, and the terrified farmers just huddled below in misery. Come along with me. Seeds lost, hope fading, danger fresh in mind. The sea calmed, but a thick, awful smell hit us hard. Salt, rotting seaweed, and a harsh mineral scent burning our noses. Old one-eyed navigator Edgar proudly called it sea dragon ambergris. I joked it smelled like a dragon's bathroom break. Then the fog parted, revealing our mysterious new home for the very first time. Pitch black. Everything was dark. No sandy beaches here. Just an endless wall of jagged black rocks jutting from the water like scary monster teeth. Dark, sharp, totally twisted in every direction, stretching way farther than I could ever see. Between these rocks, narrow strips of gray gravel mixed with shiny shell fragments and dark pebbles. The kind of beach that absolutely wrecks your feet. Behind the shore, the land was even worse. Flat, Cracked earth covered in crust, literally hard as concrete. A few pathetic bushes shivered in the freezing wind, looking completely drained and lifeless. No trees, no grass, zero green life. Even bird droppings were completely scarce. The smell down here was totally overwhelming. Concentrated salt and harsh decay pressed right into your face. Old Jack stared, saying it looked way more desolate than the worst ruined landscapes he had ever seen. Raymond just muttered it was ugly as hell. Leah nervously clutched her surviving hemostasis grass seedling, completely trembling. Bart nervously worried if his earth magic could even work on these rocks. We sailed along the coast until Captain Barton finally found a natural bay. Relatively calm waters. Now pay attention. Fewer underwater rocks, a wide gravel beach, and a massive vertical black cliff wall rising right behind a gentle slope. That cliff was our epic answer. A perfect natural fortress wall at our backs. High ground for lookout posts and a totally clear view of the entire bay. I ordered the landing boats out. Hitting the shore, the ground was super hard, slippery, and surprisingly sharp enough to pierce right through thick leather. That harsh air was so strong, coughed instantly. I scrambled right up the slope, starting to assess. This massive cliff provided perfect back shelter. Enemies could only attack from the front. We could easily carve watch posts into it, maybe even cool tunnels later. Seeing low seawater pools nearby, I cleverly guessed that freshwater springs might be hiding right underneath. I ordered a dig for tomorrow. Without fresh water, nothing else even mattered. Jack and Raymond agreed this was the best spot. High ground, natural defenses, ocean visibility, and potential fresh water. On this totally crazy wasteland, it was the only decent patch. Then real trouble began. The landing boats began ferrying our farmers ashore. Stepping onto the gravel, seeing absolutely nothing but black rocks, lifeless soil, and freezing wind, that is when their emotional dam completely broke open. One old farmer knelt down, scooped up that pale dirt, crumbled it between his fingers, sniffed it, and just started sobbing his eyes out. He spent his whole life working rich black soil down south. This wasn't soil. This was literally just concrete mixed with heavy salt. He cried, they were completely tricked, and nothing would grow. That sparked a huge chain reaction. Kids cried for home, mothers wept, holding their babies, and men stared blankly at the totally barren ground. The craftsmen looked totally lost. They weren't afraid of hard work. But what good were their amazing skills if there was absolutely nothing to build with and zero food? Feel that tension? Panic spread across the beach incredibly fast. The gloomy sky crushed everyone's spirits even harder than the freezing wind. Standing high on the slope above, I watched the absolute chaos unfold. Hearing sad cries carried on the wind, my face showed zero emotion. Turning around, I stomped that frozen ground incredibly hard. Sharp gravel pierced right through my boots. Pale, lifeless dust instantly puffed up around my feet. What a treasure, I sarcastically muttered through gritted teeth, jaw set like iron. If I couldn't transform this wild wasteland, I'd seriously write my name backward. I spun around, shouting down at Bart, who was nervously peeking at the panicking crowd from behind a huge rock. Bart, grab your team, get up that slope and thoroughly map every inch of this ground. We're building the absolute toughest shelter this coast has ever seen, right against that cliff. Starting today, this barren place, even tough weeds hated, was entirely mine to proudly conquer. Meanwhile, the freezing north wind brutally cut across the beach like sharp knives. Our poor farmers huddled inside leaky grass shelters around pitiful campfires, staring completely blankly. Despair was winning. Crusted ground, black rocks, lost seeds, and biting cold. If I didn't act fast, I would lose their hearts completely. I confidently called Bard, Ella, and their 9 earth magic apprentices to the slope. Staring at the iron, hard black rock, and frozen soil, their faces screamed, impossible. Bard nervously stammered, the stone was simply too tough for their weak magic. I just grinned. Pulling out 2 crumpled scrolls I secretly copied from the Academy library. Basic earth spells. So what do you and I make of this? Every lifeless rock here just became epic building material. perfectly molding like clay in our hands. Let us dive in. We build homes first. Warm shelter calms their worried hearts. Everything else waits. I mapped a safe housing zone right on the lower slope, completely hidden from harsh winds. Bard's team of 5 cast stone to mud, magically melting those giant rocks into thick slurry. Ella's 5 mages used mud to stone, turning totally useless alkaline dirt into super solid bricks. They took rotating shifts to recover magic power. Craftsmen helped farmers use wooden molds, shaping mud and stacking bricks fast. Elders and women quickly gathered dry grass to completely insulate the walls. Bard's group started. 5 pairs of hands pushed a boulder, spiritual energy flowing through magic patterns. In just minutes, that giant black rock melted completely into a steaming pile of mud. Bard's face literally glowed with joy. Ella's group performed the opposite miracle. She waved her hands right over that gray crust. That useless dirt softened up, then instantly hardened into a neat, rectangular brick. Super tough and solid. You gotta see this. The farmer who cried over useless dirt just watched his bad land become an actual, solid building block. He dropped to his knees, crying happy tears, shouting miracle. The construction site absolutely exploded. Those hopeless farmers were suddenly sprinting with heavy wheelbarrows full of mud, hauling big bricks and cheering loudly. Master craftsmen directed everything. Foundations poured from liquid rock, thick walls stacked high, and solid timber roofs quickly covered with packed earth. Simple and ugly, but incredibly warm. I strictly managed their magic shifts, forcing meditation breaks and handing out potions for fast recovery. As they practiced, speed increased instantly. The farmers found an epic rhythm. 7 days total. By sunset, rows of cozy stone houses lined that slope. They looked super rough and ugly, basic roofs and simple wooden doors. But they blocked the wind and held massive warmth. I announced the lottery. 1 room per family. Families with kids or elders went first. The rest just squeezed together until we built more. When those first families walked inside their dry, windless homes, so many broke down crying again. But this time, from pure joy. Happy kids ran around laughing loudly, while women arranged belongings. Men proudly patched cracks without being asked. Thin smoke drifted from brand new chimneys. That heavy despair was completely gone, quickly replaced by something totally real and beautiful. Hope. Bard and Ella collapsed on rocks, shaking from pure exhaustion, but smiling like they had conquered the world. I clapped their shoulders. You two are absolute heroes. Take 2 days off, then we build a fortress. I stared at the wasteland outside our tiny village. Still barren, super hostile, and ugly. But now my people truly believed. And that changed everything. Watch closely now. The houses were done. But a massive new crisis was already breathing down our necks. The food was gone. Storms and pirates ruined our supplies. We had mere days left, not weeks. I had secret mountains of wheat hidden in my dimension. But pulling food from thin air in public was way too risky. I needed to magically grow crops on this real land first, then quietly sneak in secret food if needed. I gathered every mage and drafted farmer, marching them straight to the flat ground behind the cliff, our absolute best spot with decent sunlight. Those farmers carried hoes and rakes with completely hopeless eyes. They knew this concrete hard soil could not even grow weeds. They totally thought I had lost my absolute mind. First step, break ground. I told Bard, Ella, and Earth mages to cast stone to mud. Pressing their palms to the iron surface, they channeled huge power, watching that gray ground melt into soft, workable soil. What took regular farmers weeks of manual labor took our magic teams mere hours. Working in smart shifts, they chugged energy potions, softening strip after strip until we finally had a massive field of deep dirt. Then came my ultimate secret weapon. I revealed massive barrels of concentrated magic fertilizer, my miracle mixture, diluted with seawater into a mild, earthy-smelling solution. Farmers poured it over every single inch, while earth mages worked it down deep with pure magic. The crazy transformation was totally instant. Lifeless dirt turned perfectly black. Let that sink in for a second. That awful smell completely vanished, instantly replaced by the amazing scent of living earth. Let's dive right into this comeback. An old farmer scooped up a handful of dirt and wept. Days ago, this soil was completely worthless, but now it looked truly incredible. We planted wheat, radish, and cabbage seeds from my stash. Ordinary looking, but totally enhanced for super fast growth. Leah and those nature mages knelt beside the field edges, pressing their hands into the soil, channeling whatever little bit of growth magic they could manage. The actual magical effect was minimal, but I wanted drama. These farmers needed to see magic blessing their crops. Faith mattered just as much as fertilizer right now. Then came the awful waiting. Day 1, nothing. Day 2, just bare dirt. Day 3, the surface shifted slightly. Everyone was wound tight with pure anxiety. Day 4, right before dawn, watchmen came tumbling into the village, loudly screaming, "Green! It is sprouting!" The whole settlement stampeded toward the fields, and there they were. Hundreds of tiny green shoots pushing right through that dark soil. Beautiful wheat seedlings, thin but bright green, literally growing at double normal speed. Cute radish sprouts with fat round leaves. Cabbage shoots looking totally vigorous, all trembling in the freezing wind, yet stubbornly reaching straight upward, soaking in weak sunlight, and the fertilizer's incredible energy. Watch closely here. The contrast against that pitch-black wasteland was simply wild. A vibrant rectangle of pure green life inside a dull gray void. Those farmers completely broke down. Old men fell straight to their knees, sobbing, gently touching the fresh seedlings with trembling hands. Women tightly hugged each other, crying with pure joy. Children crouched nearby, wanting to touch the amazing sprouts, but afraid to damage them. Excited people started shouting that I was chosen by the gods, calling it an absolute divine blessing. Leah and those nature mages stood at the field's edge, beaming, their faces totally red with pride. They obviously knew the fertilizer did most of the heavy lifting, but they had been part of this epic miracle. That sweet feeling of belonging and being completely needed lit them up. I stood on the ridge watching this emotional scene. 500 families who had been ready to quit were now kneeling in dark soil, weeping over bright green sprouts. The massive weight on my chest finally eased. I grabbed a pinch of that rich, living earth, stared at the bright, beautiful seedlings, and finally allowed myself a genuine smile. Earth mages perfectly broke the tough ground. Magical fertilizer completely transformed it. Nature mages nurtured it. This epic combination worked flawlessly. The farming operation was officially alive. I looked out at the vast, totally barren coastline stretching in every direction, and I felt my wild ambition burning hotter than ever before. The first crops were finally in. Now, it was just about how incredibly fast they would grow. With crops sprouting and our major food crisis on pause, I quickly turned to the next huge problem: protein. Let's be real here. My epic knights couldn't swing swords eating plain radishes. We seriously needed meat. I stared at dozens of steel-toothed rabbit cubs stuck in their reinforced cages right on the bedrock, and instantly saw an absolute goldmine. These rabbits breed fast, but produce super tasty meat, totally useful fur, and most importantly, valuable magic cores, literal mobile treasure chests. I immediately called in Bard, Ella, and the Earth Mages for another huge construction job. They groaned. Bard dramatically slapped his forehead, loudly complaining that he was supposed to be a noble mage, not some full-time, exhausted bricklayer. But they still got to work, using their awesome stone to mud and mud to stone spells on the scattered black reef rocks. They easily created perfect uniform dark stone bricks. Masons quickly stacked them. Mages magically reinforced the joints. And within 2 days, we had a massive circular enclosure, huge walls over 2.5 meters high, topped with sharp stone spikes, preventing escapes. Honestly, it looked more like a small fortress than an animal pen. I proudly named it Black Reef No. 1 Magical Beast Ranch, or as everyone casually called it, the Rabbit Pen. Old Hank, the farmer I put in charge, immediately asked the most obvious question: what do we even feed them? We barely had enough food for ourselves. and nobody was wasting precious grain on rabbits. I pointed at the ocean. Seaweed. Haul it in, dry it, grind it up, mix it with some leftover wheat bran and water. Hank looked at me like I had grown a second head. Rabbits eat seaweed? Well, they do now. The resulting feed was this incredibly foul-smelling dark green paste that made poor Hank gag just looking at it. But when we opened the cages, the hungry rabbits dove in and ate absolutely every last drop. Their oversized front teeth worked like tiny shovels, rapidly scraping the stone troughs perfectly clean. What absolutely nobody knew was that, every night, after everyone was soundly asleep, I snuck right into the pen and sprinkled a thin layer of space-grown premium beast feed at the very bottom of their troughs, mixed beneath the seaweed paste, completely invisible to anyone checking in the morning. The rabbits happily licked their bowls clean, waking up shinier and noticeably more energetic every single day. Confused, Hank scratched his head, wondering why they were thriving on his awful cooking. A few days later, a totally panicked Hank came running to me. Strange sounds were echoing from the pen, weird metallic clinking and loud grinding. He thought the giant rabbits were fighting. They weren't fighting. They were eating rocks. So what do we make of this? Dozens of rabbits gathered around scattered black reef stone chunks by the huge walls, casually gnawing them with their absolutely terrifying front teeth. Stick with me here. Sparks flew, stones scattered. They chomped solid rock like crackers, enjoying every single bite. Hank almost fainted. I just laughed. Steel-toothed rabbits naturally munch on minerals. It is their nature as earth magic beasts. The space feed boosted that instinct. And these black reef rocks definitely packed the tasty minerals they craved. I quickly told Hank to stop clearing the loose stones from their pen. Free snacks and natural tooth sharpeners. Plus, I ordered our farmers to scrape that black, slimy moss off the coastal rocks and add it to their feed mix. When Hank dumped that first moss basket inside, the rabbits swarmed it instantly, acting even more hyped than they did for the seaweed paste. Our farmers just watched, amazed. Rabbits eating seaweed, crunching rocks, munching moss, growing fatter and healthier every single day. Word quickly spread through the settlement. People actually started looking at that rabbit pen with a strange new respect. If these creatures could actually thrive on seaweed and stone, maybe, just maybe, the rest of us could survive too. I stood proudly, watching my glossy, rock-chewing rabbits, then glanced out at those green fields in the distance. Boom. Stable meat source fully established. Magic core factory operational. Morale booster delivered. Black Reef Coast was truly starting to work. 1 month after that stressful first landing, 2 familiar shapes appeared on the gray horizon. The Black Eagle and South Wind, sails proudly flashing the Wilson family crest. The lookout almost fell off his tower screaming the news. The whole settlement completely erupted. Farmers dropped tools, sprinting for the beach. Knights stood tall. Even those hungry rabbits paused their intense rock chewing. Now, pay close attention here. I rushed to the landing zone with Raymond and Jack, seeing those 2 ships riding super low, way heavier than before. Edmund delivered big time, but my stomach sank, because I knew exactly what was coming. Another round of that terrible unloading process right on this miserable gravel beach. Old One-Eyed Edgar and I circled those anchored ships in a rowboat, carefully checking for any hidden underwater rocks or tricky currents. The path we stomped out before was totally erased by tides. Every single trip to this coast reminded me how badly we needed a real dock. This cargo was super serious. Thick lumber, planks, plus crates of iron, nails and fittings, pulleys, heavy rope, waterproof canvas, better iron plowheads, strong steel tools, and barrels of waterproofing, oil, everything we desperately needed to build real infrastructure. But unloading was just as brutal as before. Cargo swung wildly on ropes from ship decks straight into bobbing rowboats. Brave sailors jumped into freezing water, pushing loaded boats onto gravel. Farmers hauled those heavy crates across slippery, ankle-twisting stones. One heavy bundle of good lumber completely slid off, and half got swept away by crashing waves. A barrel of sealing oil tipped over in a rowboat, coating everything nearby in a sticky stink. Plus, precious seed grain fell into seawater when a tired farmer tripped. We rescued it fast, but the damage was done. I watched from the high ground, grinding my teeth in frustration at every loss. You felt that too, right? Master Carpenter Grimm marched up and said what I was already thinking. We could not keep doing this. Even a basic wooden pier extending into deeper water would save. Enormous effort and terrible waste. I pointed at the lumber piling up on shore, telling him that building a real dock was his absolute first job once this unloading finished. A very welcome surprise came off the south wind. Several dozen new settlers recruited from around Blackstone City, sent over by Edmund. Men, women, whole families. Nervous but curious. When they stepped onto the cold gravel and saw our stone village, the intense unloading operation, and especially those green test fields far off, their heavy anxiety started melting into cautious hope. One older newcomer pointed at our crops, asking a veteran settler if wheat actually grew out here. That veteran puffed out his chest proudly. He explained how our special fertilizer turned salt flats into farmland, about the fast-growing crops, and the magic. Those newcomers' eyes widened. Maybe this place wasn't a total nightmare after all. 2 grueling days of unloading later, the beach was piled high with crucial supplies. Everyone was completely exhausted, but spirits were high. New tools, fresh lumber, new people, and exciting new possibilities. I climbed aboard the South Wind right before it left, handing the ship's captain a sealed letter meant for my father and brother. I told him to report that Black Reef Coast was standing strong, houses built, crops growing, rabbits fattening. Send wine next time. The 2 ships raised anchor and sailed away, carrying my letter and the awesome news that we survived. Only the battered bedrock remained in the bay, our completely faithful guardian. I stood on the cold gravel, watching those ships shrink into the far distance, then turned back to look at the massive mountains of fresh supplies, busy settlers, and green fields. Doc, I muttered, you're first on my list. Once I build a proper harbor, supplies will easily flow in like a river. Trust me, watch what's next. Black Reef Port is happening. But freezing weather was hurting my people. Loud coughs echoing through the village. Come along with me. The farmers were freezing out there. Knights suffered wild bruises from training. Plus, our earth mages looked totally pale after draining their magic on massive construction. Our nature mages were totally exhausted from crop duty. Everyone desperately needed healing, but my supplies were basically gone. Premium healing cells were almost wiped out after that crazy pirate clash. We desperately needed a real alchemy workshop. So, stuck on this crazy coast with barely anything, I found a tiny corner room on the stone fort's second floor, tucked right against the cliff. Sure, it was freezing and ugly, but safely hidden far away in case something randomly exploded. The best part? That cliff featured a natural crack for ventilation. Honestly, the setup looked completely pathetic. Just one busted clay cauldron and zero magical heat. Our only fuel was some soggy seaweed and random shrub roots. Leah stared and asked if real alchemy truly required pure magical fire. I just smiled and said we were way past worrying about being perfect. We just needed to survive. But the smoke was instantly awful. I lit a tiny test flame, and boom, thick dark clouds completely filled the space. Poor Carl started coughing wildly within seconds. Now watch this genius move. I spotted my 3 wind apprentices just standing around doing absolutely nothing, and a brilliant idea hit me. I pointed at the vent and said, blow. Become the exhaust fan, I joked. They stared back in total shock. After all, they were actual mages, not some human air pumps. But my serious look made the truth completely clear. Blow or starve. So they lined up, firing wind magic toward the crack in rotating shifts. It barely worked, but the annoying smoke actually drifted outside instead of trapping us. Those 3 were panting heavily within minutes. But hey, at least we could finally breathe. As for ingredients, I gathered whatever was available. Hemostasis grass actually grew wild around these rocky crevices. Tough leaves, smelling purely of ocean salt and bitterness. Our farmers carefully gathered and dried huge bundles of it. Concentration flowers absolutely refuse to grow out here, so I secretly smuggled a few seedlings directly from my space farm. I handed them to Leah to cultivate in a safe fortress patch. Fed with diluted magical fertilizer, our supply stayed limited. For everything else, I grabbed whatever Blackcliff offered: seawater, crushed oyster powder, and even stone dust scraped from rocks that the local rabbits had chewed. My rule was simple: try local materials first, then cheat with the space farm when absolutely necessary. I promoted Leah to head pharmacist. She looked completely terrified, but also fiercely determined. Following the simple recipes from my wisdom workshop, she guided 2 young assistants through the very first batch. The fire sparked. Smoke heavily billowed. Our wind mages blew frantically. Dried hemostasis grass hit the hot cauldron, sizzling and unleashing bitter fumes that blended right into the nasty smoke. Leah confidently shouted instructions. Stir it clockwise. Add 1 single ladle of seawater, a tiny pinch of oyster powder, a fingernail of stone dust. The magical mixture thickened, turning from green to deep reddish black. It smelled like medicine, ocean, heavy minerals, and a campfire combined. The second Leah shouted to stop the fire, her assistants quickly dragged the boiling hot cauldron away using soaked rags. A strong farmer furiously smashed that hot paste inside a stone mortar until it became completely smooth and dark red. Then, I tested it right on a tiny scratch on my hand. Cool relief instantly spread. Pain faded. The injury closed extremely fast. I know what you're thinking. It isn't space tier gear, but it completely crushes any regular market items out there. And the absolute best part: Leah made it. I didn't have to do everything alone anymore. The second batch was concentration flower tea, basically a wonderfully mild energy potion. Leah used her precious dried petals sparingly, simmering them gently alongside diluted fertilizer solution and a small touch of raw seawater. The magical result was a faintly glowing pale blue liquid with a clean floral scent. It somehow completely overpowered the room's terrible smokiness. Carl volunteered for a test. Sip. Instantly, his drooping, exhausted eyes snapped completely clear and awake. He cheered that his head felt genuinely better, not as intense as my own personal potions, but real and incredibly effective. The smoky little room immediately erupted in cheers. We did it. We successfully brewed actual medicine on this barren coast with seaweed fuel, a basic clay pot, and human-powered ventilation. I officially declared the brand new Black Reef Coast Potion Workshop open for business. Leah perfectly ran production. Carl managed ingredient cultivation. And those 3 wind mages became permanent exhaust fans. Everyone else happily assisted. Thin smoke curled from the cliff crack, carrying a strange perfume of fresh herbs, sea salt, and wood fire across the settlement. You and I just watched pure survival. The freezing wind hurt, but nobody even cared. Every single pair of eyes in our entire settlement was glued to those fields behind the fort. Those barren strips of salt flat that our magical fertilizer miraculously transformed into actual farmland. The golden wheat was incredibly heavy, gently bending in the wind. Vibrant radish greens absolutely carpeted the ground like a massive rug. Huge, tight cabbages were finally growing everywhere. The amazing smell of real crops completely wiped out the usual salty, nasty stench of the Black Reef Coast entirely. Stick with me here. The hype was driving everyone crazy. Walking the fields, I carefully tested the wheat and cabbages. Sure, they were not as fat as southern harvests, but this crop was totally solid and real. The veggies were perfectly crisp and juicy. Tomorrow, we finally harvest. The news spread across the village like an absolute wildfire. Excited farmers grabbed sickles, and old folks happily hobbled out with their walking sticks. Mothers brought babies, and toddlers stumbled happily behind them. At my signal, dozens of blades swung down in unison. That epic sound of blades slicing the wheat, that super satisfying crunch was the absolute best music I had heard since reaching this awful coast. Golden crops fell perfectly, dropping that sweet smell of fresh straw. The farmers worked with insane energy and pure, absolute joy. Harvesting crops on the Black Reef coast seemed completely impossible just a month ago. Over on the vegetable side, happy workers dug up round radishes and chopped massive, plump cabbages. They were not huge, but they were smooth, firm, and endless. People held up radishes with tears streaming down their faces. Having farmed forever, they knew just how epic this absolute miracle truly was. Little kids chased each other around the fields, sneaking bites of crunchy cabbage and grinning with totally full cheeks. The massive harvest took most of the day. After lifting the final basket, everyone was completely exhausted, but beaming with pure, absolute joy. Sure, the total yield was smaller than top-tier southern fields, and the kernels were not huge, but they were golden, beautiful, and absolutely real. The radishes were slightly small, but crazy numerous, crisp, and sweet. The thick cabbages were absolutely perfect for surviving the freezing winter. Limited? Yeah, but pay attention to everyone who arrived expecting to starve here. You and I know this was pure gold. I loudly announced a feast. We dragged out precious salted meat from the ship. The women fired up massive iron pots, ground the wheat, and boiled some incredibly thick, fragrant porridge. Salted meat sizzled loudly, releasing a godly smell that made every stomach rumble for blocks. Massive radish and cabbage chunks went in next, soaking up that rich flavor. Everything was dumped into giant pots of wheat porridge, simmering until it became incredibly thick, steaming hot, and just impossibly mouth-watering. Excited people lined up holding their chipped bowls and pots. Everyone got a massive ladle of rich stew, packed with meat, veggies, and thick porridge, all glistening with delicious oil and piping hot. They crouched everywhere, slurping it down, and happily burning their tongues, without even caring. That hot food spread amazing warmth, completely melting away their months of freezing fear. For the very first time, genuine laughter echoed across the village. The kids happily ate until their faces were totally messy, and bellies completely full. I sat nearby with Jack and Raymond, aggressively shoveling down my own huge bowl. I gently nudged the old farmer nearby, the exact same guy who was crying over the completely worthless dirt on day one. I told you this crazy land could grow food. He just cried and nodded. Now watch closely, because here is where you and I get an amazing surprise. Without even being asked, the farmers finished eating, wiped their mouths, grabbed their tools, and fiercely marched straight toward the untouched, barren wasteland. They started claiming new plots and breaking ground instantly, playfully arguing over which spots looked best, already screaming hype about next year's radishes. Leah and her nature mages walked through those cleared fields with their notebooks, carefully measuring the fresh crops, noting exactly what grew best, and planning how to fix the fertilizer next time. I proudly watched it all happen. The eager digging, the notes, and those eyes burning with pure ambition instead of fear. The massive, heavy stone finally completely lifted right off my chest. I totally drained my bowl, feeling that amazing warmth settle in, and stared out at the barren coast stretching way beyond our tiny green miracle. The first harvest was officially done. I whispered it proudly. With food, people's hearts remain steady. With land, our roots go deep. Cozy cooking smoke drifted up, carrying that legendary smell of food across the freezing air. This was no longer the smoke of pure desperation. It was the absolute birth of our brand new home here. I had finally put down roots. With everything stored safely, the medicine workshop creating awesome healing salves, and everyone eating like absolute kings, our camp's morale was finally hitting the absolute roof. Farmers happily hummed while working. Now, it was time to seriously upgrade our weak defenses. Honestly, our stone fort was basically just a fragile shell. Huge wall gaps you could stick your hands through, weak corners, and sketchy patches ready to completely collapse from just a single strong breeze. It might stop a dog. I called Bard and Ella. Trust me, you and I know our real journey begins now. Let's jump in. They just finished eating, trying to recharge in a sunny corner, but their faces totally dropped the second they heard my voice. More bricklaying. Seriously? An endless chore. I walked them around the fort, pointing out every flaw, thin spots, Got orders to add half a meter of extra thickness. Weak corners desperately needed rounding and reinforcing. Sloppy patches got entirely torn down for rebuilding. Bard and his team would soften the old stone surfaces into mud. Ella and her team applied fresh layers, hardening them back into solid rock. The result? Super smooth, thick walls fused seamlessly to the original structure. Zero joints, no cracks. I renamed it Black Reef Fortress. Sounded incredibly intimidating. Next up, I had them dig underground, 3 meters deep through solid black rock, cycling between softening stone and scooping out mud. The finished basement featured super smooth walls, perfect ventilation holes, and massive space to store medicine or anything incredibly valuable. Finally, real security for our supplies. We also carved massive stone basins inside the fort, hooking them up to rooftop drainage channels. Whenever it rained, water flowed right down and gathered safely in these tanks. Emergency water reserves, absolutely critical on a coast where fresh water was scarce. Up top, the flat roof got a ring of waist-high stone walls for protection, plus a lookout shelter built from timber and thick canvas. 3 sides blocked off, 1 side left open facing the sea. I had 2 heavy iron fire basins installed right at the observation point, loaded with dried seaweed, brush roots, and whale oil. When lit, the flames were visible for miles around. 1 fire meant a ship approaching. Now, watch closely. 2 fires meant an enemy attack. This was the part I had been thinking about, turning simple farmers into a tough militia. I ordered Raymond and Jack to start training every able-bodied farmer in basic defense. Not making them legendary warriors, just teaching them where to run, where to hide, how to safely support the knights from behind walls, how to thrust spears through stonework gaps, and how to chuck rocks effectively. Raymond looked doubtful. Jack scratched his chin. These farmers were better with hoes than swords, but I did not need heroes. I needed people to follow orders and not panic. The training was completely rough. Farmers jabbed wooden poles at the air like drunk ducks. Rock throwing practice nearly squashed several bystanders, sending women and kids totally screaming. The knights demonstrated defensive positions and counterattack patterns, barely holding back their poorly hidden laughter. It was messy and clumsy, but after a few sessions, something actually began clicking. People learned which alarm meant what, where their assigned positions were, exactly who to listen to, and how to work together perfectly behind those walls. A faint outline of organized defense actually emerged from the chaos. Standing on the heavily reinforced walls that evening, I looked down at the training ground, then out at the thickened fortress walls, the underground vault, the water tanks, the blazing lookout fires, the lush green fields beyond, and the smoking chimneys of our village. You feel that shift, right? For the first time, Black Reef Coast did not just feel like a survival spot, it felt like a home worth defending. Things were finally running smoothly. Fort upgraded, crops growing, rabbits thriving, and the militia training. But I could not shake the memory of that ORC shaman's poisonous green eyes from the pirate fight. Danger was out there, and sitting behind walls waiting to be surprised was a totally terrible idea. I upgraded the lookout to non-stop operation. 3 shifts, 24 hours, fires burning constantly. I pulled One-Eyed Edgar aside, telling him he was now my human radar. Any ship on the horizon, or strange movement on the shore, ring the bell. Immediately, I trained a dozen sharp-eyed young farmers as his rotation crew, teaching them to identify different sail types, spot unusual currents, and catch suspicious movement along the coast. But watching from the fort wasn't enough. I really needed to know exactly what was out there on our coastline. I quickly organized patrol teams, 1 knight, 2 guards, and 2 trained farmers per squad. 5 people, light gear, walking daily routes along the shore. Their job? Map the territory, find freshwater sources, locate useful resources, and identify hidden defensive positions. Most importantly, watch for any signs of ORCs. Raymond led the very first patrol himself. They headed west along the rocky coast. At dawn, carefully picking their way across freezing gravel and slippery reef stone, The two farmer scouts actually turned out to be surprisingly useful. Months of scraping moss taught them every crevice and tide pool. They easily pointed out fresh oyster beds, rainwater puddles, and animal tracks as they walked. Around midday, sheltering behind rocks for a rest. One farmer mentioned seeing massive white bones nearby weeks ago. Raymond investigated immediately. What he found made his veins run ice cold. Trust me, this is wild. Half buried in the sand were enormous claw prints, way bigger than a man's hand, incredibly deep, and terrifyingly sharp-edged. Stick with me here, because things are about to get intense. Among the broken animal bones near a massive black rock, Raymond found a crude spear. The shaft was roughly shaped. Bone. Its tip a sharp piece of black flint tied tight with animal sinew. Dried dark stains from old battles still covered the point. Carved right into the rock beside it was a snarling beast head with massive fangs. An absolute classic ORC territorial marker. Raymond grabbed the weapon, wrapped it in oilcloth, and called for an immediate retreat. The entire patrol sprinted back to the fort, completely silent. The two farmers were pale and shaking hard. They grew up hearing terrifying stories of savage ORC monsters. The lookout bell clanged like crazy as the patrol sprinted in. Everyone froze in their tracks. Knights gripped their weapons. Farmers literally stopped mid-swing with their hoes. Raymond rushed to the watchtower, handing me the spear. It felt super heavy and cold, giving off this wild, primitive energy. I unwrapped it, spotting the beast carving. Those claw prints were barely days old, partly washed by the tide, but still stamped deep into the sand. The ORCs had been right at our doorstep. Now watch this closely, because this is where everything shifts. I carried the spear high to the edge so everyone below could see. See this? I yelled out into the wind. ORC claws have reached Black Reef Coast. Panic rippled through the crowd, but I shut it down fast. So what? I roared at them. Our fort is massively reinforced, and our cellars are stocked. Our weapons are incredibly sharp. Our knights are ready. And you? I pointed at the militia holding wooden poles. Your hands aren't just holding basic firewood right now. They are holding your survival. When the ORCs arrive, I'll be ready. I've been waiting to test out our brand new blades. Let's see whose bones are actually tougher, theirs or our massive fort walls. I smashed that bone spear right into the watchtower floor. The crack echoed across the entire settlement. Then, I quickly fired off rapid defensive orders. Patrol routes got shorter but wider, focusing completely on the west where those tracks appeared. Lookout guards doubled their focus. Knights and militia fully switched to combat readiness, keeping their weapons on them always. Everyone slept with one eye open. Fort gates were massively reinforced and locked every night. The fear in their eyes didn't magically vanish, but it turned into fierce determination. The absolute resolve of people who basically had nowhere to run. I stared at the crude bone spear in my hand, gazing out toward the misty western coastline. Come on then, I finally muttered. I needed a whetstone anyway. Meanwhile, Carl and his nature mage apprentices were scraping moss from coastal rocks when he spotted something genuinely incredible. An entire herd of wild mountain goats. You and I know finding 15 goats jumping around sheer cliff edges is an absolute game changer. Here, these beasts were compact and crazy tough, rocking gray-brown fur with hard little hooves that gripped the sharp reef rocks like magic. They happily snacked on thick salt bushes growing in the cliff cracks, plus that slimy dark moss covering the rocks. The exact same stuff we could barely stomach ourselves. Even better, Carl spotted a tiny kid stumbling around, protected by its mother. Where there are babies, you definitely have a solid breeding population. Carl remembered my lessons on natural affinity. Magic. He sneaked closer with open hands, channeling gentle, super warm spiritual energy right at the herd. The goats definitely tensed up. Lead males lowered their horns, but the tension dropped slightly. He carefully laid cabbage and radish greens on a flat rock. They were interested, but way too suspicious to get any closer. Then Carl pulled out his ultimate secret weapon, a special space-grown radish from emergency rations. The second that radish hit the air, its pure life energy scent spread everywhere. The herd went totally wild. That proud lead male caved instantly, charging in for the food. The rest totally stampeded, shoving each other just to reach those super tasty leaves. They devoured every single scrap, but their eyes stayed glued to that space radish. One huge male snatched it whole, chewing in pure bliss while the others drooled. Carl happily sprinted back. I instantly ordered Bard and Ella to construct a massive stone enclosure. Welcome to Black Reef Ranch. 2. Half a day of earth magic later, we had a tall, solid goat pen, way bigger than our little rabbit one. Carl officially became our head animal tamer. His tactic was brilliantly simple: bait and befriend. Day 1, he dropped normal veggies far away. Day 2, closer, throwing in pieces of space radish. Day 3, at the entrance with huge radish chunks and his calming magic fully maxed. By that third afternoon, the greedy lead male just could not resist and strolled right inside the gate. The others followed right behind him, completely hypnotized by the radish scent and Carl's chill aura. "Shut the gate!" Carl yelled out. The farmers slammed it shut. Those Black Reef Mountain goats were officially ours. Feeding them was easy. Same formula as rabbits: piled seaweed and dried rock moss. Trust me, you'll love watching this base grow. Stick with me here. Those hungry goats ate it absolutely eagerly. Carl visited daily with space radish treats, building massive trust. Those goats quickly learned to mob him immediately, happily bleating, just like excited little kids. The little kid even nuzzled his leg for extra pieces. Then the absolute best news: the mother goat's udder was swelling. Milk. Not much yet, but real goat milk. Totally nutritious food for kids, elders, and patients. I stood looking right at the goat pen, then the rabbit enclosure, and the green fields beyond. Rabbit meat, goat milk, radishes, cabbage, wheat porridge. Our diet was truly diversifying fast. The settlement's nutrition was finally climbing from desperate survival rations toward something keeping our people healthy and strong. Black Reef Coast was becoming a real home, simply one animal pen at a time. I was standing by the pen watching Carl feed his beloved mountain goats, daydreaming about goat milk skincare products for noble ladies, when the loud alarm bell suddenly shattered everything. In the war room, Raymond totally laid out what his patrol had discovered. West of Crocodile Head Reef, perfectly hidden inside a rock crevice, dozens of wild kobolds were mining ore. He brought back samples, chewed rock fragments, crude bone spears, and most importantly, a heavy chunk of dark metallic stone featuring a fresh cut iron ore. My brain exploded in two simultaneous directions: threat, hostile monsters operating on our doorstep, mining resources that could arm enemies. Pure opportunity. Our wasteland had iron deposits, meaning better tools, strong weapons, and armor. Now pay attention. Taking everything was totally obvious, since it rockets our entire development forward. I assembled the complete strike force. 30 awesome knights in polished armor, glowing combat auras, swords drawn. The militia provided backup with sharpened spears. Leah and her healers stood ready with potions. We marched incredibly fast and quiet across the reef toward Crocodile Head. That mine entrance was just a narrow crack in the massive cliff, barely wide enough for two people. Fresh stone chips and foul-smelling kobold droppings totally littered the ground outside. From inside came the rhythmic clink of mining tools and harsh, barking voices. My grand plan was simple. Raymond's powerful shield wall completely sealed the entrance. Then I stepped back, gathered my epic fire magic, and launched 3 dense fireballs straight at the massive loose boulder hanging above the cave mouth. That resulting explosion was absolutely spectacular. The giant boulder shattered, surrounding rocks collapsed, and the main entrance caved entirely. Heavy dust and smoke billowed out through the remaining gap, while terrified screaming erupted from inside. Trapped, Jack led the epic charge through rubble. He smashed through the debris like a human battering ram, plunging into the smoke-filled tunnel, with knights pouring in behind him. Inside was absolute chaos. Dozens of small, hunched, dust-covered kobold miners armed with nothing except bone picks and stone hammers. against armored knights channeling earth element combat auras inside a confined space. They didn't stand a chance. The fight lasted maybe 3 short minutes. Jack completely knocked their leader out, striking so hard the creature just went flying. The knights swept through the rest like a scythe through weeds. When the dust settled, completely defeated, kobolds covered the tunnel floor. But in the corner, 20 surviving miners huddled together, shaking violently, tools abandoned, whimpering with heads down. Zero fight left in them. I walked in, stepping over fallen FOs, nose burning from heavy smoke, gunpowder, and the sharp animal stink of kobolds. You saw that too, right? Exposed veins of dark, metallic ore ran right through the rock. Scattered and not incredibly rich, but unmistakably iron. Real iron ore, here on the Black Reef coast. My heart hammered as I happily ran my fingers along the cold mineral surface. Then I looked right at the cowering kobold miners. Their claws were calloused from digging. Their teeth were worn from gnawing rock. These creatures were incredibly experienced miners. Ugly, smelly, but genuinely skilled at exactly the work I needed done. I started laughing. I really couldn't help it. The happy sound echoed through the battle-scarred tunnel. I gently crouched in front of the trembling group and pulled out a piece of space radish peel. That sweet, life-rich scent cut through the dust and stench instantly. One brave kobold sniffed the air, its dull eyes flickering with unmistakable longing. I held the peel forward with my absolute friendliest smile. Want some? Work for me. Dig my ore and you'll get plenty. They looked at the radish peel. They looked at the battle-hardened knights standing behind me. They looked right back at the peel. Every single one nodded frantically, making pitiful, submissive sounds. Absolutely perfect. We marched them out in a rope line. 24 brand new miners for Black Reef Coast's first iron operation. I walked last, happily clutching the ore sample in my pocket, already calculating how many tools and weapons we could easily forge once production started. Iron, the one resource that could completely transform a struggling frontier settlement into a real power. So what do you and I make of this? Massive riches were hiding right there, guarded just by kobolds with tiny stone hammers. Trust me, this wild wasteland sometimes delivers the best surprises.